Teach, Progress. Today, we and every Friday and Saturday from about 10 p.m. Pacific to about 1 a.m. Pacific, we talk about how people can learn to teach others to abandon being radicalized. That is, we help de-radicalize people. The first part of it is teaching people about the sort of mistakes in thinking that are commonly made. These mistakes in thinking are how people manipulate others into becoming radicalized. Now, you can't tell somebody who's been radicalized, you're wrong, because that doesn't change them. All you can do is show them the ways that people get tricked, and then they start seeing being tricked themselves. And that is what can de-radicalize people. And so we are going over these. So the first part is to talk about them. The second part is to talk with somebody that comes into the room. They make a claim. When they make a claim, they say it's a good idea or a bad idea. And that good idea or bad idea, we try to unpack the underlying logic. Often it's flawed logic because none of us have like a perfect set of arguments. We then unpack the flaws and have a moment where we can talk about those thinking errors, those mistakes in thinking that are part of the argument. And then we try and rebuild the argument the best we can, right? In the spirit of what they were getting at, we build what's called a steel man instead of a straw man. And then we have a conversation about that steel man of their argument. Finally, after doing that a bit, there are many people who are volunteering because this is a group that has come together to all work together towards doing this. And the folks that are volunteers will then start taking over, talking to people, trying to bring in explanations of these cognitive errors, that is to say, mistakes in thinking, so that they can get practice at it as well. And that is the process that we follow. So, again, let's drop into the common errors that people make. And we're just going to talk about the simple definitions for each one. But if anyone in the room wants further explanation, we have both an example and the proper full definition of the problem of this mistaken thinking. All right. First, we have confirmation bias, right? Confirmation bias. It's true because I believe it. Is very common. We go around looking for things just to confirm what we already believe. All right. The next one, attribution error. If they did it, they caused it, right? In our own lives, when we do things, we know that there's all these complex causes connected to what we're doing. But when we look at other people, we very much think, oh, they just chose to do that. And it happens when we look at groups of people as well. We understand the complexities of our group, but their group is all just like that. Very common mistake that in our thinking. Substitution error. I think this is the number one problem. This is accepting an answer to another question. We have so many questions in life we want an answer to. We very often take a different answer just because we want the answer the first thing. That is, we want to know what's going to happen in the future, right? But we can't know what's going to happen in the future. So instead, we look at what happened in the past and just kind of hope. The next, false equivalency, right? Saying that two things are the same, but they really aren't. Next is a Motte-and-Bailey. That is invisibly going from one thing that is impossible to defend or hard to defend and ignoring defense of that argument and just falling back to an argument that you can defend and is actually very easy to defend, right? I see this all the time with evolutionary psychologists. They make some bold claim about how evolution is connected to some social phenomena. And then when you say, hey, actually, it doesn't make a lot of sense, that connection you just made, they'll say, all I'm saying is that people are evolved. Like, okay, yeah, no, that isn't all you were saying. That's all you're willing to defend when you're pressed on the issue, right? Zero-sum thinking. Zero-sum thinking is particularly pernicious because it is so common sense to think if they win, I lose, right? Like it's a board game, but that common sense is a trick because almost everything, if you invest in someone else, that benefits them, yes, but it benefits you because it benefits them because we're all connected. And it's hard to see those second and third order connections. This ties into black and white thinking. This all or nothing, it's either all good or all bad without considering the trade-offs that occur in everything that we do. Next, Gish-Gallop. This is where you make many arguments. You don't even care whether they're good or bad. You just make so many that they can't be addressed. Often it's to run away from a particularly bad argument that you're trying to protect. A form of Gish-Galloping is whataboutism. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? As soon as anything important is pressed on. Next, correlation and causation. People mistake correlation for causation all the time. Some of the time, nope, all the time, right? The assumption that one thing followed the other, and therefore the first thing caused the other, right? This correlation must mean that they caused one another. And in particular, if you can come up with a story as to why you can imagine they would cause each other, you're going to get correlations that you believe are causal. And that can be really, really dangerous. One example, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded a study to try and figure out what the best schools are. And they found that the best schools had the smallest classrooms. What they failed to study was what the worst schools did. The worst schools also had the smallest classrooms. Because when you have a very small sample size, you get outliers. And when you only look at outliers, you'll find that small sample size is the correlation. But that's not causal. You can't make classes better by making them smaller. You can just get a statistical anomaly. All right. Now, argument from incredulity. Right? I can't imagine it, so it can't be true. We see this in here all the time when people just can't imagine being someone else, right? A lot of people, if you ask them, how would you feel if you didn't eat or sleep yesterday? Will say, but I did eat or sleep yesterday. And that is, you can't get further with a conversation because people are just incredulous about anything except what they have experienced and are experiencing right now. Next, sunk costs. I've invested too much to quit now. You can see this in the eyes of the people who have like all this merch and it just like, it doesn't matter anymore, but they have to double down on it, right? Personal attacks. This is a real problem. When you have a personal attack, you're not making a logical argument, but you're making a very effective argument. Because personal attacks don't go at logic. They go at who a person is. That is, in order to have a logical argument, number one, we have to agree that you're not here to kill me. Number two, we have to agree that I'm not here and I don't have to kill you, right? You don't see me as an enemy. I shouldn't see you as an enemy. Once we're not enemies with each other, we have some shared values, then we can have a conversation that's logical. But until then, the argument is just about this difference in values. And as long as that's the argument, attacking the person as a person instead of what they're saying is the thing that will win rhetorically. So it's a very, very dangerous way of thinking. False dilemmas, right? It's either this or that, and there are no other options, right? And this is so common in what we encounter in the world, it just becomes invisible, right? You want a red apple or a green apple? Well, what if I want a pear, right? I got you to choose between two things in the domain I asked you to, apples, and now you're going to fight me over apples, and you're not even going to consider a different alternative because I've gotten you focused in on that thing. And finally, learned helplessness. Nothing I do makes a difference. It never has. And the fact is that since human beings can make a difference, some people will make a difference, and that person may well be you. Even if the last 100 times you tried doing something, it didn't seem to work. But the parable of this is the elephant that's stuck into the ground by a stake as a baby, right? They put it on a rope, put the stake in the ground, hold the elephant to it. And as the elephant grows and grows, he becomes so large he could easily rip the stake right out of the ground. But because he learned that he was staked to the ground as a baby, he doesn't even try. All right. So those are the cognitive errors, that is to say, mistakes in thinking, that we will be talking about today. Let's go ahead and open the floor. What we'd like to do is have someone say something is a good idea or a bad idea, and then we'll start talking about those ideas.
Don't all rush at once.
A good idea to brush your teeth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not going to write that all down, but let's think through that. Is it a good idea?
Depends on what you brush with.
It does, and it depends on whether or not you just ate, right? You can hurt your enamel if you just had something acidic and you brush your teeth. Yeah?
Really?
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
Fluoride
Well, no.
conspiracy.
If you have something super sour, super acidic, then you do want to counter it with a base, some kind of
Like rinsing your mouth out with water.
Yeah, you do want to counter it with that. So you're like
Before
if you
brushing.
drink if you drink a shot of apple cider vinegar, for example, which I mean,
Which
I
you
would
shouldn't
recommend
do. Don't
everyone
do that.
No, you should. It's good for your gut health.
You love apple cider?
Apple cider vinegar, I said.
Okay.
Yeah, you should take that. You should take ingestions of apple cider vinegar. Good for your gut health. Good probiotics. You know.
Maybe. The research on gut health is like all over the place.
Yeah, it's still continuing, but most
Some
studies do come to,
Some people get esophageal problems if they drink too much vinegar as well. So
obviously,
don't start
case
a
of
health
benefit.
regimen without talking to your doctor. I think that's a pretty good idea.
Sure, yeah, of course, yeah.
And if it starts to burn your throat, don't keep doing it. Right?
Yeah.
When
If
you-
your
when you
teeth
say
start falling
drink-
out, don't keep doing it, obviously.
When you say drink apple cider vinegar, do you mean drink as in sort of like, how much are we talking here?
I
When
mean,
you say drink?
the recommended dosage is under 30 milliliters per day. You don't want to do
1
do
to 2
heavy.
tablespoons, basically.
Yeah. And then if you
Yeah,
put
yeah.
that in some food, then you don't have to drink it straight. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But you still should brush your teeth or do some kind of counter, to the because it does if it contacts your teeth, it is an acid. It does harm the enamel of your teeth. You would want to counter it with some kind of base substance.
Yeah, or just water, which is perfectly neutral and will eventually wash that away.
Sure, yeah, or water, yeah. But yeah, water immediately after would work too. So yeah.
And then some things are acidic and we don't notice, like carbonic acid, right? So if you're drinking a soda and there's carbon dioxide in there, that can also cause problems with your enamel. So don't brush your teeth right after drinking, like even soda water. Okay, that is not the kind of claim we were talking about, though. So, let's see. Ryan. Oh, Jason and 2K just came in. Yeah, Jazz.
So I would say it's a bad idea. Mass deportation is a legitimate way to solve immigration for any country. That is a bad idea.
Ah, okay.
You're saying it's a bad idea, yeah?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, it says a
horrible
bad idea to use mass deportation to solve problems with illegal immigration, right? So,
Yes.
what's your underlying logic there? Why are you making that argument?
So I think instead of criminalizing, obviously people that they don't come here just to come here to wreck the economy, to be criminals and things like that. Instead of criminalizing them, I think there should be we should invest in more mechanisms to legitimize them and integrate them for a healthier economy.
Yeah. So let's think about that. Your general logic is that deportation keeps the people who are here from contributing. Is that right?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So let's think about this for a moment. Would you say that it's all just amongst people who have immigrated here illegally, people who are contributing?
I would say with the exception of a couple of rare cases, most people, I would say, I don't want to venture a guess, but I would say most people come here for a better opportunity to provide for themselves or their family. That's one of the main reasons that they do want to emigrate
Granny.
here.
Let's go,
Yeah,
Granny.
for sure. But even so, if let's say 1 in 1,000 people was a bad actor, right? Let's say they had a felony from their home country. And if we've got 10 million people, right, that's still a mass deportation of 10,000 people that you would have, right? So it's not that everyone who's immigrating here is contributing, right? That's black and white thinking on the other side. Just like the people who want mass deportation for everyone starts off with this sense that, okay, maybe it's not black and white, but it's so black that there's not enough white to count it, right? So maybe a stronger argument is we shouldn't mass deport people who are here illegally, but put them through a system like people who are here for refugee status, right, seeking asylum, and then do a mass deportation of people we know to be bad actors. What do you think?
Vetting. Yeah, vetting exactly like if they were coming through a legitimate port, like even airlines, if they're flying in here, we still have to vet them. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. So based on recent reporting, we have 650,000 who have convictions of various felonies in their respective countries. 13,000 were convicted of murder, who are currently roaming freely in the United States.
And where did you get that information?
The ICE. They released a report where.
So how did they find that information?
Well, it's a person shows up, they claim, hey, I'm this person, right? It takes a long time. They don't know who you are. They don't have any access to any database of where you are, and then they have to make a determination that like we're reaching mass occupancy, so we can't detain you. So okay, you have a court date. Go off, do your thing, show up for the court date. But in that time, in between releasing them and their court date, they receive information from the respective countries where the person is claimed to be from, and they're like, oh yeah, that's Robert Luis. He was convicted of homicide, and so currently we have about 13,000 people convicted of homicide,
which I think we can agree, and I think we just talked about could be mass deported.
Well, yeah, but we have no way of tracking them now. They're in the country already.
We do have a way of tracking them. If we just brought people in, if we gave them legal status to be here, and we gave them proper papers to work here, then they would be working somewhere, and we'd know where they were.
That doesn't give you a tracking ability.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if they're going to work, right? Then you'll know where
they don't have to work. They don't have to work. Why would they have to work?
Because they'd like
bad actors wouldn't want to be tracked either.
Yeah, bad exactly. Like they would do things to evade those kind of systems where they would be
right. It's crazy that they're coming from another country and just like telling them that they're Juan Garcia and Juan Garcia is a murderer.
Well, the idea is that they would be able to
tell the truth to ICE, but then when they get into the country, they'll start lying.
Yeah, they'd be able to change their identity.
And when they tell ICE that that's who they are, then of course they're going to get caught for that. I mean, it doesn't seem to add up, right? Like, who would do that and why? Why wouldn't they just lie
Well-
when they got to the
Well,
immigration services?
it
in
doesn't
the
matter
first
because they
place?
know they're not being tracked, so they can come in. They can come in. I mean,
Okay.
ideally,
All right, so
ideally you would come.
let's write this down. Let's write this down.
Yeah, ideally you would come in with the identification of like the true identification of your bad actor status, and then you would switch to a pseudonym, right?
Yeah, why would you do
wouldn't want
that?
to. You wouldn't want to come in with a false identity because a false identity would be more easily flagged than a non-false identity. You would want to come in with your true identity and then find ways to
Right.
change your identity.
So I think what
in country.
Jazz was suggesting was that we figure out who people are right when they come in.
Well, we don't have access to foreign governments, criminal.
Why not? I think we probably
because
do
we have no sovereignty over them. We don't have any control over
No,
their.
but
How
it's
does-
like if we should. I'm sure we have communication with them to be like, hey, here's our list of criminals. You give us your list, because if they're actively having like an FBI database, but in their own country, I'm sure that's easily available.
Well, that's what Interpol
online.
does.
No, it's
That's what I'm saying.
there are exactly there are mechanisms to try to get this information, but not all countries are cooperative. We aren't compelling them to be cooperative. We ultimately have to rely on the trustworthiness of their
And yet
data.
we
Mexico
still
doesn't share their
got this
crime database.
information per your statement, right? You said that we
Yeah,
get the
from them,
information.
yeah.
So we do get.
So we
the-
have to rely on their
Also, you're just
information.
you're ginning up a story where people just fake who their identity is after they come in here because they use their real identity to get through, because we don't have any ability to see if their identity is real at first. Except if we can't tell if their identity is real at first, wouldn't you come up with somebody who would never flag something if we just have to not know who they are? Like, the order of things happening here doesn't really add up, right? What you're
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they come in. It's like John Smith comes in from Venezuela, and then Venezuela says, "Oh, he's a thing," but he's working in Nebraska, and
why
his
did he
name is
come in
John
as
Smith.
again? If he came in
There's no
John Smith,
interconnectivity between the systems.
If there's no interconnectivity between the system, he could have just lied about who he was at the first, right?
He doesn't have to lie. He doesn't. He
No.
could continue his same identity and never be detected.
Oh my god. Okay, so the first thing you said was they lie because they can be detected if they are, because it's easier
No,
to
I
tell
said
the
they
truth to
can
get
lie.
in.
They can lie.
You said when they come in that they have to tell the truth, that they tell the truth because it's easier to get in if they tell the truth.
No, I'm just saying that they can.
People are gonna
They
say
can
that.
tell
So
the
what
truth.
you're doing
Can't
is you're
get in.
making a series of different and
It's only
conflicting
fucking-
arguments, but not sticking to any one thing, right?
Well, that's technically
no,
not what he said.
Because
Well,
you haven't
no,
you
I'm-
haven't
I'm
thought
keep-
through the
I'm keep- I'm
entire
keeping-
process, right?
I'm keeping to the data. The data currently
Oh,
says
you're
that we have
not. You're
13.
not. Because
No,
what
I'm-
you're doing
the
is
da-
you're making up
the da-
stories to justify the data
No.
that you think that you have.
The data currently says that we
Well, I
have
actually can
13,000
clarify this.
non-detained homicide convicted felons in
Are you
in
talking
the United
about
States.
overall
Illegal
immigration reform? Like overall
My dog is an
immigration
illegal
reform?
immigrant.
I'm just saying what the data says. I mean,
Specialized, like some
however,
sort of specialized
however
reform.
they decided to do this.
There we
that's up
go.
to them.
There we go, Septic. That's what we really need to know. There's before we move on, right? If you want to
Mhm.
understand the data that's in front of you, you have to understand
Mhm.
where it came from and how it was created, right?
Sure.
I think that's a great idea. Let's do that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what's the name of the source that you're using, and where did you find this information?
The ICE.
Okay, ICE, and then what else is a good search for this?
So ICE. Let's see. ICE probably. Was it convicted criminals, illegal immigrants? Maybe that might be a good Boolean logic. I don't know. It could work probably.
Did I say that that 13K illegal
it? Awesome.
immigrants were? Did you find it? Did we find it?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Google that. That would work too. but it would be you get less of the other statistics. But yeah, if you narrow it in on the 13K, then
Wait, where's Penguin?
you'll still probably find the information.
Okay. All right. So, more than 13,000 immigrants convicted of homicide either in the U.S. or abroad are living outside of Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention, according to data ICE provided to Congress this week. The immigrants are part of ICE's non-detained docket, meaning that the agency has some information on the immigrants and they have been pending immigration cases in the U.S., but they are not currently in detention either because they are not prioritized for detention, they are serving jail time or prison for other crimes, or because ICE cannot find them. The three law officials. So, keep in mind that this also meant whether they're inside or outside the United States. So ICE, right, the immigration service needs to know if someone's trying to immigrate here
where's
to look up
Penguin
whether or
Hunter?
not they're a convicted killer. So this 13,000 aren't illegal immigrants, but rather people that ICE has encountered. It does include catch and release people, but it also includes people that have been put in jail otherwise. Not only people who have been put in jail otherwise, but also people who are applying to immigrate to the United States. So, this is much more in depth, right? This is just a headline. If we want to know how many are in each category, we're going to have to take some good time to read through it. But I just want to caution you from repeating headlines that you haven't dug into, because
No, but it is significant,
easily
the
be a
number that
problem.
are freely roaming in the United States.
significant.
Yeah,
Like, what percentage would you say are what you're talking about?
Fewer than
I don't
one
know.
in 1,000, right?
not fewer than 1 in 1,000.
Fewer than 1 in 1,000.
Septic, how many murders have been committed by illegal immigrants this year?
Well, are you following into a logical trap now? Are you're switching? You're kind of switching, right? We talked about.
we're
Well, I mean, you would
Well,
assume
we're-
that
we're
somebody
not
who's a
one out of
criminal
1,000.
You're talking
would
about moving the
continue
goalposts, right?
to be
1 out of
another criminal.
1,000 is kind of a lot.
I haven't said
people.
anything actually. I'm not even talking
One
about
out
what
of
you're thinking.
thousands.
I'm
Well,
just
well,
curious.
well, well, so
That's a lot of-
you're because it sounds like you're vectoring into the statistics of repeat offenders, and so like, okay, how do we track repeat offenders in the United States? You know, what are the statistics on that? Like, do we let people out of prison in the United States because of because they might potentially repeat offend? That's what it sounds like you're vectoring into.
I think 1 out of
Really?
100,000 would be okay, but 1 out of like 1,000 is kind of a lot.
Yeah,
No,
well, who knows?
well, there have been 27 this year out of all the homicides. So, I mean, there's a constant background noise about how there's a illegal criminal crime going on. You hear it
1
from
out of
politicians.
1,000
No, but you
becomes
are
1 out of
you are talking
100.
about talking about repeat offenses.
Pretty-
You're talking about
yeah,
the
that-
statistics on repeat
1 out
offenses.
of 1,000 will become 1 out of 100, like in no time.
Yeah.
What do you-
And then
what do
it'll
you
be
mean?
1 out of.
I mean,
Well, you're talking about
okay.
should we
So
should we
let's hold on.
sorry.
Let's hold on. Someone just said something different, and that is 1 out of 1,000 will become 1 out of 100 in no time. How, like, what logic are you
It's
coming
already-
at this idea that there will be one
already
10 times
already-
as much as, because when we look at changes
Well,
historically
how
in
did it
terms of
become 1
crime,
out of? It was probably
it's not
1 out of
actually 1 out of
10,000 before
1,000.
that.
Yeah, it's not 1 out of 1,000. It's 27 out of 12 million.
Where was it say that?
Oh
27.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and find that. So it's 2 out of a million. That's how many.
2 out of. Oh, that's nothing.
So we don't need
That's
to
right. It's
have
nothing.
so we don't need to have them on parole.
What is that
because
statistic?
the likelihood is so low that we don't need to enact these mechanisms to track them and to do these things.
Well, in the same way,
Or-
Septic, you could say that someone who was, who had become a police officer, right, was less likely to commit a crime. Should you be making sure they're all on parole because they might commit a
Well,
crime?
that's the thing is that maybe the reason that the repeat offense is so low is because there are mechanisms in place that track them so diligently and maybe those mechanisms decrease the likelihood of repeat offense.
Okay, so
And if we don't have mechanisms to track people who have been convicted
Okay.
in other countries of homicide, maybe their likelihood of repeat offense would increase. I mean, we don't know, So I don't want to create a logical fallacy here, but
I think
maybe
the mechanism that's in control is the fact that if they commit a crime, they will get deported. So they are less likely to commit a crime so that they don't get caught, therefore
Yeah.
won't be deported.
I mean, you might be less likely
That's
to
a good
repeat
point.
offend if you're being
Again, the same argument.
if you
You
have
don't
served
want to commit a crime.
well, no, if you've served your sentence, maybe you are less likely to commit a crime. So yeah, so if someone has gone to jail for 25 years for murder, maybe they are less likely to repeat the offense because they have served 25 years. So
Right,
yeah,
but
sure.
Like 1 out
Well,
of
I
a
mean,
million
this-
people is nothing. It's not a lot
yeah,
of
2 in a
people.
million is next to nothing, right? And even if it was 10 times as many and it was 2 out of 100,000, it would still be next to nothing.
You're not going to have a
Well, we're
perfect
still
reality.
speculating, but
You
it is
can't-
still
it's impossible
It is
to
still
have
people
everything
dying,
perfect.
people being murdered.
Well,
so, I mean,
septic,
you're never
once
gonna
again,
have
only
something-
27.
well, actually,
Did
let's
you
talk
personally
about
have
this
someone-
idea.
do-
Let's
Are you
talk about this.
speaking from personal experience? I mean, do you know someone that actually got killed? Probably not.
This is unrelated to the question.
No,
that's
that's
not
a bias. That's a
That's right. That's
that's
attacking
a-
him as a person as opposed to the argument
that's
at
an
hand.
that's an ad hominem bias. That's not
Well, that's what
personal.
he said.
He wasn't attacking me personally. That was an ad hominem,
You
right?
know,
That was
okay, so let's stop for a moment. When people say ad hominem, what they mean is attacking the individual and who they are instead of attacking the argument, right? So
or,
it's
no, it's their
really
experience.
it's really not necessary to
Exactly,
use the
yes.
term ad hominem. It just all it does is speak in Latin to confuse people, completely unnecessary. Instead, it's better to think about how it's actually being deployed rhetorically.
We'd
right?
be living in a utopian society if we could, rule out killing. But
Yeah.
I don't see that realistic. Yeah, it'd
So-
be like a
so let's-
utopian-
Of course we can.
Yeah,
You're right.
let's address your claim, Septic. Your claim was
Which
people
one?
are still dying, right? And now here's the question:
Yes.
are more or fewer people in the United States dying because there are immigrants? Are more or fewer are more or fewer American citizens dying because of undocumented immigrants?
So did
Well-
the murder
well,
rate go
if
down
you-
or up with immigrants?
If you did not have any undocumented immigrants, then we would not be able to add any deaths attributed to undocumented immigrants to our status of homicides. And if we can't
What?
add any of
Okay.
well, hold on, if we
Now-
cannot add any of
Mhm.
those deaths to the statistics, then we would have statistically less.
Okay, now let me address that claim because it seems to be what's underlying a lot of people's points and they can't quite articulate it, and you did, and I think that's very useful. Some crime is certainly committed by people. Was it 29 homicides overall? Something like that, by people who are here that are undocumented, yes? So, of those 29, American citizens are suffering maybe 2 of them. But because the vast majority of crime in the undocumented population is against other people who are undocumented.
Okay, the
So that
question
means
should be
American
this.
citizens aren't suffering from it. People that are here and documented are not suffering from it.
Who's committing
However-
the crime? The
however-
immigrants or the non-immigrants?
Okay, sorry, back. I'm going to go ahead and continue this argument. However, they also bring 12 million people here. Not only are some of those people working as nurses and EMTs saving lives, but also some crime is random. I think we can agree some crime's intentional, some crime is random. And if crime is random, if you increase the pool of people around you to absorb that crime, by bringing in 12 million people who are undocumented, some number of those people who are undocumented will absorb the random crime. In fact, it's something like 0.5% of the population.
Does illegal immigration hamper legal immigration in any way?
It would seem, Septic, if we think about it, the people who want immigrants to come over are the people who want immigrants to come over. And the people who want it to be documented have a problem with documenting the people who are here.
No, I'm asking you because I love like I work with an African man, and he's wonderful. He's a phenomenal IT professional, and I want more immigration from people who want to immigrate to the United States legally. And I think our economy depends on the immigration. I think nurses. I think we need nurses from other countries. I think we need doctors from other countries. I think we need laborers from other countries. I think we need IT professionals from other countries, because our economy cannot sustain itself without this immigration.
Right. So,
but what I'm asking you is does illegal immigration, where these people are coming in illegally, they're skipping the line essentially, are they making it more difficult for the legal immigrants to immigrate? Because I want legal immigrants. I want a ton of them. I want all the legal immigrants. I love them. I want them. I want more of them. But I'm asking if the legals are hampering them.
Who's committing the crime, the immigrants or the non-immigrants? By percentage?
Yeah. I want so many immigrants. I want immigrants every single day of the week. I love them. I love them. I love them. I love them.
It's very reasonable.
Convictions of a non-citizen. Only 3 for murder in 2017. I don't see how that's. Then what's the criteria to get convicted as a non-citizen?
This document is directly from the Customs and Border Patrol or Border Protection. So this is from the U.S. government.
But you're moving away.
Government always
You're moving away.
So we're gonna address Septic's claim, because previously we addressed the claim that more people, if there are any murders, therefore mean more American citizens die. But one, those added immigrants who were undocumented saved people's lives by working in ways that save people's lives, like EMT.
Yeah, that was Sayers' claim.
And
there's no way.
If you have random crime, if you have an extra 12 million people, that's 12 million more non-crime bodies to absorb the crime, right? But now you're making a claim that it's a bad idea to accept people who come, accept and document the people who are coming without prior documentation or current legal documentation, because that hampers other people who want to come in here in a documented manner. Is that about right?
That's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you if that is accurate.
Yeah. So you're saying that's a bad idea to do that?
No, I'm asking if you think that hampers it. I'm not saying it is. I'm asking you if you think it hampers it.
Well, it's okay. You don't have to stand behind the argument as a person, right? You just have to have come to that logical conclusion.
I'm just proposing.
That's right.
Proposing the idea.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're proposing that this is a bad idea, right? We're not. You'll notice, Septic, something I've done. We've done here. We're not writing your name down, right? Because it's not about the person, it's about the idea. So
well, that was the whole problem with the previous room. That you were falling into that personal bias fallacy.
Well, when you're like we talked about as we opened up, if you try and defend an ethos, or you try and defend your people against another people, you start fights, and that means you're not speaking from shared values. So let's start there, Septic. You say that you want immigrants to come every day of the week, right?
Yes, I love immigrants.
What values do you hold?
What do you mean?
Yeah, because to have a conversation, it's not ad hom to make sure it's not attacking the person, to share values to make sure that it's not contentious, right? So I value the hope that immigrants have when they come here for a better life. That hope is one
Yes,
of my core
me too.
values.
Me too. Yes.
Yeah?
I think including my coworker, I think he came here and he's talked to me about this many times. He stated that he came here because there was the American dream, there was the American hope that he could come here and start, his life and start industry and produce for his family. And
that's
and
another
do
one of
things.
my values
And that's what
is creativity.
That's what I love.
Yeah?
Yes, I love that, and that's what I hope for. Yes,
And
and
then,
I want all immigrants to have that value.
yeah, and to me, at least, an American is someone who believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of a better life. Even if they're a Scotsman,
Yes.
they can still be American by ethos. And to that
Of
end,
course.
wherever people are in the world who have that idea of trying to live a better life, we ought to be supporting them.
Of course.
We can call it the Scottish Dream and say everyone's a Scotsman too. So everyone's a true Scotsman. All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So here's the thing. You think it's a bad idea. You're proposing it may be a bad idea, that is, for people to come over undocumented, right? But
Yes.
that would say that the processes, would you say that the processes you have to follow to that, oh, here we go. Would you say that it's a zero-sum game on immigration then? That either there are people who can come in illegally, but if they do come in illegally, you're thinking that means other people can't come in legally. So there's a zero-sum in total immigration.
No, I think that there is a startup cost on anyone who comes in. There is going to be a drain on the system on anyone who comes in, no matter where you come from, because there's going to be costs to fusing into our society. There's going to be costs to having them live while they search for a job, right? Like, I mean, I've been unemployed for almost a year at one point, and I recognize that this cost, the taxpayers, they spend money to make sure that my family was insured healthcare wise. So there is going to be a cost associated with this, but the entire time that I was unemployed, I was always doing things to better my pursuance of a job and things like that. Like I was actively minimizing my dependency on the government
by finding ways to do better over time because you had hope and a desire to do
get
better.
A job. Yes.
So let's address that real quick then. Septic, I think you're making an important point. The idea that you're presenting is there's just so much absorptive capacity that we have, right? We only have so many resources to bring people in.
Yes.
But wouldn't you say that means that we'd have to be at that capacity limit, and that each person who's coming over undocumented means that we're taking away resources needed for someone who's coming over that's documented?
No, because we have shown
if we weren't at that capacity limit,
my money is going into your pocket, and I'm doing all the work.
We have shown as a country that we were perfectly willing to go into.
I'm paying for your education, your university, and everything else.
Okay, I mean, you're describing what I'm about to say, but we have demonstrated as a country that we are perfectly willing to go into exorbitant amounts of debt and into the tens of trillions of dollars.
No, that's not right. But you don't justify.
But that's your point. Yeah, we are perfectly willing to go into tens of trillions of dollars.
We need to fix that. Also, we need to fix that, of course.
Yeah.
But you don't
let Septic finish his claim, because then we can talk about the nature of taking on debt and how it's absolutely required in order to run a system. Because we don't have money without debt. Go ahead.
We have demonstrated that we are perfectly willing to go into tens of trillions of dollars of debt, in order to pursue, capital ventures that are
so
not
you're taking your money back.
Okay, well, you're not. Let me finish, man.
Yeah, sorry.
Why don't you just talk? You just talk. I'm not gonna say.
Yeah, if you're not on the screen, you're not. It's not your time to talk. So go ahead, Septic.
You talk, Backlash.
About to kick him.
No. Continue.
Okay, well, we have demonstrated as a nation that we are perfectly willing to go into tens of trillions of dollars of debt to back systems that enforce, the
International
sustainment of-
adventurism into Iraq and Afghanistan.
Sure. Yeah. We already have this thing in place. So if we have a mass influx of immigration, we are perfectly willing to go into debt for these people,
Yeah.
regardless of the potential future yield. Like they may not yield anything, but we're totally willing to go into debt for them, thinking that oh well, yeah, you probably will yield greater things for our country, but we are.
Yeah, so let's talk about why one might think that's true. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
For the average laborer, their total lifetime production is around $7 million. And
Sure.
for the average laborer, their total lifetime consumption is about $3 million.
Yep.
So someone else is getting the other $4 million worth of a lifetime of consumption, of production, right? And
Sure.
that is the system that we have right now. So on average, as you add people, you're bringing in people who are going to consume far less than what they produce, which is why bringing in more
Theoretically.
people is just on
Liability.
average. Any
Right.
one person could be bad, right? Any one person could get sick, right? But then that will be offset by another person who's very productive. Yeah?
I don't think the net. I don't think
You're
the
just
the net,
adding more
I don't think the net
liability.
average comes out to a positive for us. I think the net average
Yeah,
might
so
come to a
that's
negative.
That's factually just not how the numbers lay out, but the
I don't know if
feeling,
factually
a lot
that's
of
true.
people,
I mean,
a lot of
you say that
people
factually, but there's
feel
not
like
fact
it's negative.
that this. You say that factually that's not true, but I've seen.
As a
I've
matter
seen
of
fa-
fact, it's
I've
quite
seen-
the
I've
opposite
seen-
of what you said. I said for
I've
the
seen-
average laborer, that's how much they produce versus how much they consume. For the average immigrant laborer, and we're talking people who have good enough jobs that they
Nailed the
came here
law.
legally, they consume something closer to $1 million worth of productivity and make somewhere near $6 million worth of productivity. And those are for the legal immigrants.
Mhm.
People that are here without documentation get even less compensation and are more exploited and still produce as much as anyone else. So,
and on average, how many people do they kill?
zero.
What?
Zero.
We have 0 kills from undocumented
A
immigrants.
zero. Yeah, average. If you want to take the number, it's zero.
But does he
Do
have?
you want to
hold
round?
on.
Oh, you want to round to the closest, not one's place, but 10's place? It's also
does he
zero.
No,
have
no,
aura?
no.
You want to round to the closest thousand's place?
How many?
Zero point zero zero.
How many people have died from the illegal immigration?
0.00. Did you want to round to the 10,000's place? Because in hundreds, thousands, 10,000s,
Just an exact number.
0.0000.
Just a
Did you
number.
want
of
to
deaths.
round to the 100,000's place? Because I'm answering the question. You said what percent are
No,
killers?
I didn't say 1%. I said how
Zero-
many. How many?
Yeah. The percentage is
The number, not percentage. The number. The number.
Zero.
No, the
zero.
number. No, not the percent.
Yeah?
The number.
Yeah, as a percent.
As a percent, the
Yeah.
number. The number is 0.
As a percent, 26 total.
26 total. You said so in illegal immigration, there's only been 26 deaths
Last year, yeah.
as a result in a year. You're saying as a year in a year. How many total out of all?
Oh,
of
you know what? I'll
illegal
take that last year and I'll just multiply it by 100. Let's assume they live 100 years and have exactly the same.
Okay, so you're talking about 2,600.
Yeah, that would be
okay.
zero
and how-
point
how-
zero
how-
zero zero.
Oh, no, hold on. So you have 2,600 deaths. How many?
Yeah, that's 100 times as many as we actually have. Just to assume for you.
Sure. But how much is each life worth in dollar value?
I mean, we just went over it, didn't we?
Well, yeah. So we have 2,600. We have 2,600 deaths. How much money is each death worth?
Why are you doing that math? What are you trying to get at, man?
Well, we're doing a cost analysis here, right? So
Right.
how much is?
Yeah, if you're doing a cost analysis, 0.000%.
No, money. Money.
Yeah, I'm
If you
deducting.
do-
Not to worry. I'm taking the total value of productivity for the 12 million people who are here undocumented, and I'm
Yes.
subtracting 0.000% from that because that's negative earnings, and then I'm doubling that number to
Well, and
0.000% because that's more negative earnings from the people that died.
And
Right.
you have to. And
So
you
that
have,
would
and,
I just doubled both of them
and you
to
have,
zero.
and you have to deduct the number of people who have been murdered by illegal immigrants, and you have to put a dollar value on their lives.
Actually, honestly,
So-
Septic,
so-
what you don't have to do is any of that. Instead, you can ask.
If you're going to be dishonest, yeah, of course.
Follow me, Septic. You don't have to do any of that because you didn't follow the previous statement, right? Immigrants are saving lives by being here. By producing things, by having the marginal worker that can produce food or medicine or shelter so people don't die.
Sure.
Right? So those 12 million people are saving way more lives than the 26 people who died. Furthermore, the 26 people who died in any
2,600
given
apparently.
year, the 26 people who died in any given year are almost all undocumented. Okay?
What if the 26
Furthermore-
people died are worth $1 billion a pop?
They are mostly people who are undocumented. Furthermore, because there's 12 million extra bodies standing around, random crime will fall into those 12 million illegal people who are here undocumented, meaning that the average citizen's less likely to die from random crime because it might hit somebody who was undocumented. So
But
in
you still
terms
have a-
of,
you
so
still,
actually the numbers you're trying to give me are actually a positive, right?
but you
so
still you still haven't
Mhm.
you still haven't addressed
The answer
why
is positive.
well, you still haven't addressed why the
Because
12,000
fewer American citizens are dying, so it's positive.
you still haven't addressed why the 12,000 undocumented is better than the 12,000 documented. I would love 12,000.
Well, that's true.
documented.
That's true, Septic, because you went and talked about something completely different.
I want 12,000 documented and 0 undocumented.
And the reason you started
Oh.
a different conversation, yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say,
0
like,
undocumented.
what's the difference between somebody who's documented and somebody who's undocumented?
Tons of difference.
No, a little piece of paper. That's it.
Not just that. No, there's a lot more than that.
Definitely criteria goes into it to become documented.
Yeah,
right?
there's
My wife is an immigrant
there's a
from Brazil.
lot. There's a
Took the
there's a-
test.
A lot of loops and stuff that are unnecessary.
to legal immigrants
right.
to
Like,
the
my
United
wife
States.
also came
There
to
are
this country
a
as a legal immigrant.
huge amount of
And it
differences,
took like
and
a long
I would love for 20,000 documented immigrants rather
Yeah.
than 20,000 undocumented.
Education,
immigrants.
qualification.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
would love.
Man,
I would love
No,
it.
no.
I want more immigration.
So
I
Septic,
want more immigration.
I'm sorry, can I just
Hey,
ask a
John,
quick
if you
question?
don't like the way it runs, come to the Discord and propose a change, and the people who own the place, which isn't just me, they'll vote on a change. Until then, the person who the camera is on, that's the person who's talking, which is Septic.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Now, Septic, you're
Yes.
trying to get to this idea that it would be better if people documented. Yes?
Yes.
I think that you're right. Obviously, it would be better if people were not
All right.
undocumented. Instead, if we could make sure that people could be here legally, right?
Sure.
But it's also pretty clear that we're not going to take 12 million people who are fulfilling roles in this society, jobs that we don't have anyone to fill because there aren't 12 million unemployed people in the U.S., right? There aren't 12 million unemployed citizens.
There are 12 million people in Africa who would take that place easily.
Now, here's the point I want to make for you here, Septic.
Yeah.
If it were a zero-sum game, the same people who say, I want to only have people here who are documented would be saying, and I want to increase the number of documented documented immigrants by 12 million, right? And in order
Well, they would
right,
only do that. They would only
They
do
may
that
not.
absent.
They may not want, absent the people who are here undocumented, right?
Absent the legal immigration.
So
status,
the plan for would be to bring in 12 million people to offset the people who came here without being documented. That would be the plan. But actually the plan is to take the people who are already documented in here legally, like the people from Haitian, who are driving up the price of housing in Springfield because it's no longer Rust Belt because they're being productive, right? Those people are driving up the value of the land and improving the quality of the education in the city and reducing the crime rate and increasing the average productivity of the people of Springfield. And they're doing that as documented immigrants. But the argument is to make them no longer legally present. The argument is to deport them as well. So it isn't that we're trading off the idea, should we have people documented versus not? It's, should we have mass deportations or not? We can both agree that we should have documented immigration to the best of our ability. But I don't think but mass deportation doesn't make sense.
Well, you brought up Springfield specifically, and Springfield went from 60,000 to 80,000, and 20,000 of the 20,000 of the new people in the region were of Haiti, from Haiti. And so when you have a rapid increase in a isolated small community,
it gets gentrified. I agree.
So that's different.
And the Haitians gentrified Springfield, and it brought back the economic vitality, the education, the opportunities. There was a massive boom in house building. There were people to work in the home building.
There's not a boom.
The rates of drug addiction fell. The ability for people to have hope and jobs increased. All those are true.
No, Springfield never had the capacity to take on these immigrants.
Okay, so once again,
or otherwise,
capacity.
Once again, Septic, you're coming back to there's only a certain capacity. But when I ask you about the capacity, you're like, actually, we're willing to take on a lot of debt. And then the question then is, are you defending the idea that we only have so much capacity, so it's a zero-sum game? Or are you saying, actually, we can take people on? Right?
No, we have a ton of capacity, just not in you can't take a community of 60,000 people and then over a very short period of time flood them with 20,000 more people.
Except when you look at every major economic and social indicator, along with the happiness of the people who were there previously, they've all gone up.
No, that's not true.
You can find people who are yelling the N-word at all the black people in town now, for sure.
Nah, that's not because of the race. It's because
But there's also
other
industry,
reasons.
And there's a tax base, and there's a booming housing development. There are the people who were harmed, though, and this is important, Septic. There are people that were harmed. There are people who are on disability, which is a fixed income, and the cost of living has gone up because the resources needed to be reallocated there. And an increase of cost of living is how the market knows to reallocate resources. So those people who are still in a minimum wage job who didn't benefit from the economic boom, which, by the way, many of them did benefit from the economic boom, because when you have more money flowing through a community, you have more entrepreneurship. But there are people who are suffering and suffering even more because of immigration. Those are the people at the very bottom, whether it's the people who were disabled on a very fixed income or the people who were still at a minimum wage and an incredibly low minimum wage.
And we want to protect the people who are vulnerable in the economy.
Yes, I agree. So let's do this.
All right.
Documenting people would improve immigration,
So we should not
and it should be limited to a point where
we should not dump 20,000 immigrants into a 60,000 person community.
And yet, wait, Septic, that doesn't necessarily follow from what you said, because empirically we can look at what happened and it did help, right?
No, it didn't help. It hurt a lot of people.
It hurt some people. Now, here's the question. No, but that doesn't assume that your options are right. This isn't like either we have immigration and people are hurt, or we have no immigration and they stay where they are.
No, I didn't say 0 or 100. I said, maybe a better amount of people.
Or it doesn't have to be about the amount of people.
Maybe 10,000 more instead of 20,000.
Well, Septic, maybe it doesn't have to be about the number of people. Maybe
it should be about the percentage based on the population of the community.
Well, you're assuming that we have to make a trade-off in the number of people who come in instead of.
I mean, there is a cost benefit.
So we've established that it's the people who are making the minimum wage or who are on disability that were suffering from.
Vulnerable people in the economy. Yes.
So Septic. What other than not having these people who are creating a massive boom for everyone else economically and revitalizing a dying city, right? Other than that, what else can be done for the people who are on disability and making minimum wage? What can be done for them?
But less people, of course. Yeah, of course.
Oh no, without having the same number of people, still the same economic boom occurs. Is there anything you can do for people who are making minimum wage or on disability?
Well, if we are saying that immigration is limitless, if we say we can dump 40,000...
No. We're not saying immigration is limitless. No one said that. What we did say, what you did say, is that there's a trade-off in resources, but then we also came to the conclusion that actually... So far, even in the case where it looks like there would be a trade-off in resources, it really wasn't. The overall number of resources has gone up in Springfield. That is a good thing, not for everybody, but for the collective whole, right?
Well,
the problem seems to be for the people at the very bottom who are suffering from this. So what should we do for those people at the bottom when the economic in general goes up? What should we do for them?
Okay, so we should increase their suffering. We should just... not care about.
Why would you want to increase their suffering?
Well, no. We should.
Septic, if the average person is now got more wealth, right? Yes, the average person's got more wealth.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a small number of people at the bottom who didn't see that tide rise and rise their ship, right? What can we do instead of not rising the tide? What can we do for the people at the bottom?
Well, that you could apply that same standard to our overall living standard increase in the United States, and they could say, well, everyone's standard of living has increased, but for some reason, Black people have not increased.
Is this
at the
same conversation that we're having?
And it is, because you're saying that in Springfield, right? You're saying, well, there was a certain subset of the population.
Yes.
They worked this. There was this population. It was a certain percent.
Yes, sir.
They did not rise at the same level of everyone else.
That's right.
So in America writ large, you would say, oh well, America has increased exponentially. Everyone's standard of living has gone up, but oddly enough, the Black population has not risen at the same rate as the rest of the population. So what do we do? What do we do about the population?
Wouldn't it make sense if the tide is rising for that we make sure that everyone has a boat?
So what do we do? Yeah. What do we do? What do we do about?
Why are you turning it around on me? Are you trying to have an argument here, Septic? I'm trying to talk through an idea. Then why are you bringing up something different? My question is, for the people who are making minimum wage and have a fixed income in Springfield, what can you do for them when everyone else is getting more wealth?
Yeah.
What can you do?
And they are
You're not answering. What can you do?
They are directly analogous to the Black population of the United States. Yeah. What can you do?
I'm asking you. You're asking. You're putting it back on me. Are you trying to have a conversation or not?
Pay them reparations, I guess.
Help them rise by taxing the people who are gaining the most.
Reparations.
Why are you using emotionally laden language like reparations?
It's not emotionally laden.
We're talking about, for example, making sure that there's housing subsidies for people with a fixed income or increasing the minimum wage. Those aren't reparations. That's just making sure that the people who are suffering because of the economic increase don't suffer, and therefore there's no good reason to stop the economic increase.
Okay. So how? Yeah. So exactly. Okay. So we
Murkov and Jazz would like to talk. I've done plenty of talking.
All right, Murkov.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I was basically just gonna say, literally, what he eventually just said is just increase the minimum wage and add infrastructure. That solves the problem. We could help these people so much now that there's a bigger tax flow going in because so many of these Haitians are working. Then why not? There's no reason not to.
So we don't need to.
That is all.
We don't need to pay reparations to black people. We just need to increase minimum wage.
What are you? You're bringing up something
What are you
completely
even
different.
talking about when it
I'm
comes
talking
to
at
this
a local
reparation thing?
level that they need to increase the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
No, I get it. I'm saying that in the small community of Springfield, he's saying that like what do we do to address, even though the community at writ large is economically booming and they're benefiting from all these things and everyone's standard of living is increasing, what do we do about the people who despite the standard of living
No, the reason that they are failing to increase their standard of living is not going up is due to other systematic issues that are not based on race. They are entirely based on.
So in Springfield, why are some people
maybe just
why
lack
are they
of
not
economic
increasing?
wealth? Maybe the drug issues. There's a huge problem with
that's
fentanyl,
the same. That's
things
the same
like
in the
that.
black community, right? Like,
But what
black
does
community?
that have to do with anything? That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
I'm saying if you're going to apply a solution to this small community in Springfield, you're saying, okay, well, despite the economic boom in Springfield due to Haitian immigration, despite that economic boom, we have a subset of the population who is suffering from this. And you say, okay, what do we do to raise them alongside the economic
It
boost
should
of
be
the community?
everyone is available to those resources.
But there are people who are suffering. Not everyone's being lifted up. So the people who aren't, the people who are being disaffected by the system, how do we deal with them? And it's like, okay, well, there's the same thing with America. It's like America has been accelerating.
This is where you're making the leap.
No.
Different conversation.
America has accelerated the economy. Our standard of living has gone up dramatically since the 1970s. Like we are far and beyond any kind of standard of living that anyone could have dreamed of in the 70s. But what do we do about this disaffected African Americans living here today who, despite all this economic boom...
Okay. So Septic, you keep
you
talking
understand
about
what I'm saying, Sayers.
Oh, we can move on to that issue, to that question.
But you understand, yeah.
Well,
you understand.
Look, so your argument, Septic, is simply if we're going to help people who are suffering from economic inequality, why aren't we helping everyone that's suffering from economic inequality?
No, I'm just asking what the answer is. How do we help these people who are disaffected despite the economy booming? How do we help the people who?
Why do you keep asking, Septic? It seems like in your back pocket you have an answer you want to get to, and the answer seems to be don't.
No, I'm asking you. I'm saying you have given clear examples of economies booming. So how do we help?
And I can give you clear examples of
who are not feeling that.
Once again, we have clear examples of how to help people who are on a fixed income and minimum wage. Increase the minimum wage, increase the fixed income, and provide subsidies for housing for people who are disabled. Like, we know how to help people who are at the bottom. And you do those things, and the economy continues to blossom where you're helping those people at the very bottom.
Good answer. Good answer.
So that's how we help Black Americans. Okay, that's how they get out of
that. Well, if anyone's in an economically depressed way, that would help quite a bit. Now, if there are other systemic issues, for example, where there is, for example, a generation or many generations of poor investment in education, it's going to take time and investment in those schools to bring people up so that they have an equal opportunity. But that's different than a place that has a short-term change in their economic status, like Springfield did, where it became worse, where you can simply make things better by putting more money into the community, which is exactly what the people from Haitian did by working and producing.
All right, so all we have to do is raise minimum wage for Black people. I get it. All right.
Did I say for
How about
Black
we do it
people?
for all people? How about for all people?
All right, for all people. Yeah.
Yes.
No, if you raise he said raise minimum wage for black people. If you raise minimum wage for black people, it's gonna actually benefit more white people.
That's
So
right.
that shit, I mean, I don't know why you came with that slick comment.
So that's right. He is coming
You
out.
know what
He's
I'm saying?
coming with
It's gonna
slick
benefit
comments,
more
chemo.
white people than
No,
black
that's
people.
That's
You
it,
do
chemo.
understand the ratio of blacks to white in
That's it,
America.
chemo.
Okay, my fault.
I get it.
Said chemo. What we're doing here is, and I'll go over this. We are going over how to de-radicalize people, and the way you do that is not to dunk on them, but instead
Okay,
to
my fault.
teach them the errors in thinking that they are engaged in. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll change right away, but rather once they learn these tactics, they start seeing how they're being radicalized by people using these tactics. For example, in this conversation, Septic has given us, beyond some gish galloping, right, making many arguments that distract from any one argument, he's given us some black or white thinking, right? Either their immigrants are causing people to die or they're not. And we did conclude that they're not. But that's not necessary. There can be a whole spectrum of outcomes. Also, he's given us some zero-sum thinking. He made the argument that there's only so many resources for people here to immigrate with. And in making that argument, he did not consider how the people that are here having immigrated increases the resource ability to absorb. Also, and we never got to this because he started talking about other things, when people immigrate, the people who want more immigrants to come in are also the people who want to put more resources into immigrants coming in. The people who want fewer immigrants that are undocumented are also the ones who want fewer immigrants that are documented, and even to take, and this is how we got to Springfield, people who are here legally and make them now illegally here and then deport them. And now Septic's trying to like, well, I mean, some people are suffering from that, but he also recognizes that, yeah, immigration is a good thing because it brings greater economic growth. Now, the final conclusion then is, are you supporting people coming in or are you supporting people going out? Because that's really where the lines are drawn. It's not a zero sum, right? It's a negative sum or a positive sum. Except, wait, the people who are here from Haitian were, yeah, they're here illegally. That's the point.
But I'm saying maybe they're here legally because they deemed it legal. But
that's how laws work. Yes,
they needed them. They needed them.
They don't need them. No, there's plenty. There's plenty of people who want to get in.
Oh my!
Who are denied?
Man. Jesus Christ, man.
Okay, so here's what's happened. Septic has done something called turtling up. Okay. He feels that he's been attacked personally. So what he's doing is simply making a series of arguments that attack the smallest point possible in order to start gish galloping. And he's not doing it. He's not doing it because he thinks he's going to win, but because he's trying to defend himself, right? From
there are more people who want to come in than people who have come in illegally.
And so, well, maybe that's true.
Yes,
maybe
it is true.
That's
it's not maybe. It's definitely true.
However,
gish gallop. You don't even know.
However, the opportunity cost is not: do we bring in people legally who are to replace people who are here undocumented? That's not a thing anyone's proposing. Instead, the question is, do we lose 12 million people worth of productivity by trying to mass deport people who are undocumented, or do we mass deport people who are here and have committed felonies by documenting the people who are?
We don't have to lose them. We just replace them. We would never lose them.
Septic, that isn't an option.
Sorry.
It is an option. It's available to us today. We can replace them one for one every day of the week.
Oh, where's that being proposed?
Hold up. Why would you do that?
Everywhere.
That don't make no damn sense.
Why would you
want to replace one? Like, I don't get what you're saying. What you saying?
Why would you deport an illegal immigrant with a legal immigrant? I would do that every day of the week. Someone coming from Senegal.
I didn't hear what you said. My fault. I didn't hear what you said.
We have 10,000 people.
Are you talking about the
We have
Haitians?
10,000 people
But
from
they're
Senegal
illegal.
trying to get into the country, and we have 10,000 illegal immigrants from Mexico who are here. I say deport the 10,000 from Mexico and bring in the 10,000 from Senegal.
Except septic.
Great.
There's no proposal on the table by any party to do that.
Well, there should be.
And it would massively
good.
disrupt millions of people who have built their lives here, whose children are
Well, that's what I was
citizens
gonna
here,
say.
who are married to American
It
citizens.
would massively help the 10,000 Senegalese who are trying to get here.
Motherfucker, you know what? The first thing that will happen is that the
Okay,
economy
we don't
will collapse.
call people MF, but yes, the
Oh, my
first
fault.
thing
That's
that'll
a figure of
happen.
speech. Figure of speech.
I understand.
I wasn't talking to him personally.
I totally understand.
That's stupid. You got we depend on that cheap labor, man. You bugging,
Yes,
man.
I want.
You know
I
what
want
I'm
the
saying? And then you
Senegalese to
bring in
get here.
you
Yes.
bring in the
All right,
ones
so
who are
let's-
legally.
Chemo,
I want the
Chemo,
Senegalese to get here.
Chemo.
Okay.
The way we're doing it again is we're not attacking people, but I mean we're having exactly the conversation that you're talking about, but carefully and calmly. And we go as volunteers, and you're welcome to come volunteer to be part of this to learn how to help de-radicalize people, because this is practice at doing that. Right now, Mirko, if we could put Jazz. I'm going to put the camera on Jazz. You keep it on Septic. Yeah.
Septic, can I ask you a question? What would be the net benefit of replacing the quote unquote illegal immigrants with legal immigrants? What would be the net benefit? What makes them better?
Well,
than the
there
illegal
would
ones
there would be a massive incentive structure across the board for people pursuing citizenship in the United States legally versus illegally. So we would have a lot more people who are pursuing and who are willing to demonstrate that they follow the international laws, right, and the laws of the United States. We would have a lot more immigrants who demonstrated that they respect the laws of the United States immigrating into our country. And that is the ideal, is that we do want people who come here to demonstrate that they do have a respect for our laws, and if that's the case, then obviously they're trying to come in to better their lives. They're trying to come in, and in bettering their lives, they're bettering our economy. Like, of course, we benefit tremendously from immigrant labor. Like, I mean, you go to any hospital, any random hospital in the country, you're like, oh my gosh, all the nurses are from South Africa. Like, what is going on? It's because they really, really, really benefit our economy, but only if they're coming here legally and abiding by our laws.
If I'm following your logic, so the legal immigration is what's stopping legal immigrants from applying for asylum and actually coming here legally.
Yeah, it hamstring it puts us to a capacity on our resources, on our welfare resources, it really pushes the limits that we can absorb these people, because you have all these people cutting in line. We have all these people who are just a drain on a resource. We pay for their welfare resources. We pay for their food. We pay for their housing. Paying for this and that.
But those are factually incorrect statements.
Yeah, so that's
so
what
if we say that what I just said is factually incorrect, then we have never paid for illegal immigrants to stay and live here.
So
I'm just wrong. I'm just wrong. We've never done that.
No, it's not that we never.
What are you even
for
talking
about? To stay here, but it's just
apparently we don't pay for illegal immigrants.
Yeah, why do you think that people are that we're taking people here who are undocumented and giving them housing? Why do you think?
Why do
that?
I think that?
Where'd you get that information? Why do you get that thought? Where'd that thought come from?
Where does the thought come from that illegal immigrants have come here and we have paid for them to be sheltered?
Sheltered, or given them housing and welfare?
Yeah, well, what is welfare? Welfare is a payment from the taxpayers for their well-being,
which
right?
they cannot apply for because they are undocumented.
Food, shelter, and what else?
Which
right?
they cannot apply for because they are undocumented.
Right.
Correct. But your point is that they're getting anything at all, but so are felons that are in jail. right? So that would be like saying felons in jail are getting welfare because we give them shelter and food.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't address our prison system either.
We only give people who are here without documentation shelter and food in so long as it takes to address them and bring them out of the country.
Yeah,
we don't just have people coming in getting housing. Where did you get this idea?
But you are saying that we have this influx of millions of people, and we
no, we don't know. I did not, and we do not. We do not have. Whoa! Septic. Okay. I said that there was an influx of millions of people, and that's factually incorrect.
What you said.
No, I did not. I said there are currently 11 to 12 million people here who are undocumented.
Millions. Okay.
The number of people who were here undocumented under George W. Bush was 12 to 13 million.
Okay.
And then under Obama, it fell to around 10 million. And now we're 11.
He deported a bunch of people, right?
That's right. And now we're 11 to 12 million. Okay. That's the number. We have not had an influx of millions of people.
And how many
we
of
have
those
had
people...
a slow increase and decrease of a fairly stable number in the population. In fact, a general decrease in the total percent of the population.
And how many of those people do we provide welfare benefits to?
Like none.
Of them, they're undocumented. They can't apply for welfare.
No, of any kind. Like we basic housing, basic.
No, they don't get anything. They don't get to apply for anything.
So they just starve on our streets and they die. Is that what
they work?
No.
They work and get paid.
Well, what do you mean? How do they work?
They get paid under the table by people that vote. Man.
No, how do they get a work visa?
They don't. Look, listen to Chemo.
Can I say something? What they do, what tends to happen is they have to hustle. You understand what I'm saying? And there are people willing to hustle with them. Meaning, it be these Republicans that want to send them back over the border, but they hire them for cheap labor. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. You understand what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, I don't know what state it was, but they try to get rid of them. You know what I'm saying? They some of the white boys raised their hand and said, "Yeah, I will work in the fields and shit," but they couldn't even work 3 hours. Look it up.
Florida.
I'm not making this up, y'all. I'm not making this up. They couldn't last 2 hours in the motherfucking fields.
Okay.
America depends on cheap labor, so there's always going to be some under the table shit going on.
So that is correct.
We should encourage under the table work.
They hustle.
So, Septic. Once again, did you hear him say we should encourage under the table work?
He said we depend on it. Yes.
Oh, he said we depend on cheap labor.
Yes. Under
it's not that it has to be under the table. However, Septic, whether or not we should encourage under the table work is unrelated to the claim you made. You just asked a question and made a conclusion. That's called a straw man, right? When you build an argument that no one's actually making. You made that happen, and it distracted from the argument you were making in the first place, which was this idea that people who are here undocumented are getting some massive amount of social services when they absolutely are not, because if they're not documented, they can't get social services. Then you said, how did they work if they don't have a work visa? And the answer is they work under the table. But you know what there isn't? Under the table food stamps. Under the table housing. Under the table welfare or Social Security disability or Social Security retirement. None of those exist under the table. That is the table.
And that's why they want to marry somebody real quick. It's a hustle. They marry somebody.
You're saying there are no social programs that exist that provide financial compensation for people who are seeking asylum.
Is that a single? Whoa! Did you say seeking asylum? Because now you've slipped again.
That's all illegal immigrants these days.
No, it isn't. And you slipped
That's
again
pretty much
from
all of them, yeah.
You've slipped again from people are seeking asylum to people who are here illegally. People who are seeking asylum are here legally. Now, Jazz, go ahead.
Hold on. Illegal people. So they crossed the border illegally, but they claimed asylum.
It's not illegal to cross the border and claim asylum and request asylum.
Yes, it is. It is illegal to cross the border anywhere other than a port of entry. So there are many, many people who have crossed the border outside of a port of entry.
Septic. Do you know what equivocation is? Do you know what equivocation is?
Yes.
Equivocation is when you say one word and
I
then
already
you
said
use
yes.
it to
Yes,
mean
I know.
two
I
different
want to know.
things.
Let
Yes.
let him explain. Other
Yes,
people
for
wanna
everyone
know.
else. For everyone else. It's
So
when you
there-
use
there-
one word to mean two different things and then you argue from one definition of the word or another definition of the word.
Yeah.
You said people who are illegal. Then you said people who
Yes.
did something illegal. And we have all been talking about undocumented immigrants. Now you're talking about documented individuals, the people who are here claiming asylum, but because they did something illegal, now they're illegals. And your idea of
They are.
illegal is
They are.
anyone who has
Yes.
done anything illegal as they tried to
No,
immigrate.
anyone who's crossed the border of the United States outside of a port of entry,
Except they're
is an
documented, right? You agree that they're
illegal- No, no,
documented immigrants?
They're an
You agree they're
illegal
documented immigrants or not?
They're
Do
they're
you
documented.
agree that they're documented immigrants?
Yes, I agree that
Right.
they are
Do
documented.
you agree that
illegals.
we are following the law regarding them?
What do you mean following the law?
We have international agreements on how refugee status is handled, and are we following those rules?
Well, insofar as we are documenting that they illegally crossed the border, then yeah, we're following
No.
laws.
No, septic.
Yes.
In so much as we're
Yes.
allowing them to seek asylum once they get here. Now
But
think
they are
about this. No, you're not
legally
following me.
here.
You're not following me because you're interrupting because you see that I'm trying to talk about the thing you're talking about instead of letting you slip away by changing your definitions. Yeah?
Hey, go for it, man.
Yes or no?
No, anyone
Were
who,
we or were we not talking about undocumented immigrants? Yes or no?
no, hold on.
Were we or were we not talking about undocumented immigrants? Yes or no?
I think you're conflating.
Were we
undocumented
or
illegals.
were we not previously talking about, and all the way up until right now, when you switched it to people who are also asylum seekers, talking about undocumented immigrants?
I think you're playing semantics.
Nope. I am trying to make sure that you don't play semantics, and what you're doing is
It sounds
accusing
like
me
you
of
are playing
literally the
semantics.
thing that you just did.
It sounds
which
like you're playing
is
semantics.
changing the definition of the term that you're using from what we were talking about previously, which is undocumented immigrants, to anyone who violated any law. And in that case, Septic, you're also an illegal because I'm sure you sped at some point. All right, let's go
Because
ahead and
I
let
what?
Jazz
What?
talk.
What? What? What?
Okay, septic.
Because I sped?
Septic. So I think
Sped, he said sped,
I
like
wanted to
driving
answer
fast.
something. Yeah, I wanted to answer.
Yeah.
You said something
Sure.
when you were equating that undocumented immigrants are a drain on society. So, we've established that since they're not documented, they can't apply for any welfare. In fact, they also pay into a bunch of social services that they can't even take advantage of because they may work under the table, they may receive cash, but everyday goods that they pay into, they still pay state tax, and they have a wealth of social services that they can't even benefit from. So not only are I think it's
where do
quite
they
the
work?
opposite. They
Where do
work
they
on
work?
farms. They still buy American goods, do they not?
Okay, so they work on the farms, and the farms hire them?
The farms hire them. Yes.
Okay, so who else could the farms hire?
Did we not just Timo did not just say that?
Well, no, I mean,
American-
if they didn't have access to these illegal immigrants, who else could they hire?
Did we not just establish that American workers are not interested?
They
in
can
working
hire
Well, no,
them.
who
But then the price of-
else? Who
price would
else
be
other
high.
than Americans?
Who else other than American? What do you mean?
Yeah. So you know, suppose that you cannot that these farmers you're establishing here. Suppose they did not have access to hire these illegal immigrants, and suppose they did not have access to hire U.S. citizens, because a lot of people say that U.S. citizens are unwilling to work these jobs. So who else could they hire in that situation?
I don't know. Who would they hire?
Can you imagine someone else? Can you like think of anyone
I
else?
cannot. Septic.
You can't think of someone in Senegal who would maybe take that job.
Legal immigration. Okay, so
I'm just
Okay,
asking
we're
if
going-
you can
we're
imagine
going-
if you can imagine that there is someone in the world like Senegal, right? If you can imagine that maybe that guy, for the same price as the illegal immigrant, would willingly take that job. Can you imagine that, or can you not imagine it?
Sure, I'm sure anyone
Okay,
can work
okay.
any job.
Oh, so you
Even
can
American
imagine it.
workers.
Okay, there you
even
go. That's
American
fine.
workers would be able to work that. But
Nigeria,
I just what I'm trying to get at is the point that you
Congo,
made that
anyone?
that illegal immigrants are a drain on our resources, our social resources, which in fact they're net benefit.
Well, they do decrease the opportunity for the Senegalese, the Congo.
How does that
Because
how does that stop them from applying for asylum?
if the job is already filled, then it decreases the demand on the job. Whereas if you made it illegal to fill that job with an illegal immigrant, then there would be a high demand for legal immigrants from like Senegal, Congo. So it is at the detriment of people who want to legally immigrate to the United States for an illegal immigrant to be hired in these positions. So
would you not agree?
You're willing to sacrifice the benefit of these people who desire legal immigration. You're willing to sacrifice their future prosperity and their American dream for people who come in illegally against the law, right?
So let me follow that logic. So if we replace one illegal immigrant with one legal immigrant, what is the benefit according to Dr. Say is about what they can produce in labor? It's about $7 million. So what would the United States gain? $7 million. Now I would challenge you, instead of doing that, why don't we just increase the amounts of jobs that are available and have $14 million worth of profit when you have one illegal and one documented immigrant?
Well, that's not how it works. I mean, your economy is basically beholden to a supply and demand curve, and
Okay, so let's talk about that for a moment. Whoa! You're factually
okay.
you're good.
All right.
Let's talk about it.
All right.
What you're talking about here is that there's a zero sum in the economy, that either some people get a job or they don't. And that idea is false. The fact is that when people produce more than they consume, then everything that they produce that's more than what they consume is more wealth for other people. And when there's more wealth for other people, there's more ability to consume it, therefore, more ability for people to live and the ability for those people to produce even more. So it's actually a positive sum game. The more people that are here, the more stuff is produced. The more stuff is produced, the more people can live off of it. The more people can live off of it, the more people can produce even more. It's a positive sum game. And if there is no demand for the stuff, it's very simple to create demand for that stuff. And that is give people money, especially the people who need it. So if you take the people who are in need and you give them money, they spend the money on stuff that they need. So now you have
no.
It's literally how you increase demand. That is how demand works.
That's not how demand works.
If you increase the amount on the demand side of demand, you do that by giving more people stuff, more money to demand with. That is how it works.
That doesn't increase the demand.
Create inflation.
Gandhi, hold on. Gandhi said you create inflation, and that's insane because we're talking about the problem of deflation. The problem that Septic said is if there's demand, if there's no demand for the products that are being produced, the products that are being produced must go down in price to meet a market clearing equilibrium. That is called deflation. So to increase demand to match how much people are producing, you can... When prices go down, that's called deflation. I have tenure in business. I know what I'm talking about, Septic. So
It sounds like
Once
you've never
again-
taken micro or macroeconomics.
It
because
actually
that's not
sounds
how
to
it
me
works.
like you didn't pay attention and you don't understand supply and demand curve. So once again, if you take the amount that people
That's
are,
not how it works,
there's
man.
only so much stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's only so, and if you produce more stuff,
Yes.
then more dollars can buy that stuff. So more people can have more stuff.
That's not how it works, man.
Okay. If you don't, okay. So you know what, Septic? At this point, you've decided to say, that's not how it works, man. And what that's called is an argument from incredulity.
Some of the
Instead
stuff
of
just spoils.
a Septic, in an
Some of it
honest,
spoils
in an
goes
honest
bad.
conversation, what you would do is
Okay.
instead of just being incredulous, you would say, why? Explain that further. I don't get what you're saying. Instead, you're just telling me you're lying because I don't believe you, which is not a real argument. It is a thinking error. If you dismiss people who are talking to you and giving you an argument by saying, that's not how it works, man, instead of explaining why that person is incorrect.
Okay.
For example, Septic, you said that undocumented immigrants were getting welfare and they're not. And then we explained very carefully
They're
for
not?
like 45
Oh, okay. You never
minutes
said that
why
they
they aren't getting welfare. Undocumented
Well, I mean,
immigrants.
it's
The
already
average,
proven that
the average
they have
undocumented
credit
immigrant gets
cards.
$0 in welfare
No, they
and
get credit
provides.
cards. They get credit cards.
Once again, the average undocumented immigrant gets $0 in welfare, and they produce a great
illegal
deal.
immigrant.
Again, the average undocumented immigrant gets $0 in welfare, and
But
they
illegal
produce
immigrants
much
get
more
dollars in welfare.
for the social system. When it comes to people who are here legally, that is, they are following American law to be
Illegally.
here. No, people following American law to be here as asylum seekers, that's a different case. It's the law that we've passed. Now, if you would
If they
like to
cross the
take, if you
border
would like to change
illegally, then it's
America's,
illegal.
the vast majority are doing exactly what they're supposed to, which is reporting themselves to the people they're supposed to. That is how
Not
you
a
seek
port of entry.
asylum.
Not a port of
So,
entry.
once again, Septic, you're completely incorrect. The vast majority are coming to a regular port of entry.
Okay,
However,
but there
we
are-
have had people coming to America seeking asylum with a dry foot policy from Cuba for generations. And those people are also asylum seekers, and they're also allowed in because we let people from failed nations come here, particularly when we cause the
how
failure
much-
of that
how much-
nation.
How much welfare do we give to them?
The total value of the immigrant population from Cuba is grandly positive. There's very little in comparison
how
to
much
what
do-
we're
how much do we
paying
gi- how much do we
to
give to
support
immigrants?
and to what we're paying to support the people who came from Cuba versus what they're producing. It's not even close. Miami would be a speck on a map that was meaningless if it wasn't for the Cuban immigrant population. Instead, it's one of the great cities of the world.
If we chose Senegalese immigrants instead of Cubans, would we have less? Less?
If we
be-
actually
economic
Septic,
boom?
if we chose Senegalese instead of Cubans, we'd have the same. And
Yeah.
if we chose Senegalese and
We'd have the
Cubans,
same?
we'd have way more. You
No,
follow?
no,
Yes,
'cause we
because the
can't- we
more
can't-
people produce something, the more stuff you
No.
have. And if you can't
No.
follow that the more stuff you produce, the more stuff you have, then you're not,
Not if we
actually
have too
listening
many
to the
people.
words that I'm
Not if we have too
saying.
many people for the-
And
not if
that
we have too many
means
people
that
for
what
the
you've
jobs.
done here is you've stopped having a conversation.
Oh my
And
God,
instead of having a conversation,
so
you've
you're- so
argued
you're
from
saying- you're- what you're-
incredulity,
no, what you're
and
saying-
now
what you're
you're
saying-
going to create a straw
What you're
man.
saying is that we can just all we have to do to solve this problem is that we get 10,000 Cubans, and you know what would be even better? 10,000 more Senegalese, and you know
That's
what would be
correct.
better? 10,000 more Swiss, and you know what? Let's
Sure.
just do 10 million more of every nation on the planet. But But what you run into when you create a population that they have demands on the economy because they consume resources, and you have these things and what they're producing.
No.
What you run into is an issue here of
A
production
zero-sum
versus
game.
demand.
Is this a
It's not
zero-sum game?
It is.
It's
it
like
is a.
one person gets one thing. If one person
just
loses, another
basic
person
economics.
gains.
It's just
That's what you're
basic
saying.
economics. No,
That's
it's
what-
basic economics.
Literally, it's not basic economics, and
It's
I guarantee
basic-
you
it's
that I
basic
understand the
macroeconomics.
difference. But
It's
one more
basic.
time, you're coming at this as if it is if they
That's
lose,
the case.
this
They'd
other
stop
group
slavery.
wins.
They'd have been like, "Yo, we ain't gonna bring no more slaves over here."
Let's just have 40 million immigrants per year. Let's just
So,
ratchet
Septic,
it up.
trying to bring
Septic, let me
they're
ask
trying
you.
to bring
going.
Africa over this piece.
Septic. The question isn't.
Why
is
not
there,
have 40 million a
Hey,
year?
Septic. The question isn't. Is there a limit? The question is, are we even close to that limit?
Well,
and
why
what
not?
is the
Yeah.
cause
Well,
of that
yeah,
limit?
Sure.
And how
Well,
can we
yeah.
find what that is?
Why?
And
Why
the
is there a
difference,
limit?
Septic, is,
Why is there a limit? Is there a limit? And why is there a limit?
There's a good question, Septic. And
Yeah.
if you're arguing that there is, you're the one that needs to come with any answer to that to begin with.
Are you saying there is a limit, or are you saying there's no limit?
No, Septic. I'm saying if you want to argue that there is, and therefore whatever is true about the world, which you're not, but if you did,
So you're,
then
so
you would
you're
have
saying
to
there's
come
no
up with
limit.
a reason.
You're saying there's no
Did
limit.
I say that? No, I said you need to tell me why you think
I'm
the
asking
limit
you.
exists.
I'm asking you. Is there a limit or not?
To the number of people who could move to the United States?
Yeah.
The entire population of China could live in West Texas. So no, there's not a physical limit. We also have plenty of resources, physical resources.
There's no limit.
I like that. I like
There's
that
no
answer.
limit
So
to how
there's
much we can
literally
take in.
no
I like
limit
that
to the
answer.
number of people the resources inside the United
That's right.
States can support, given
That's
the
right.
population of the Earth. Absolutely.
Can I
Oh,
say something?
woo.
Can I say something to that? I just want to say that. I just want to say I
Yeah,
agree
come
with
on.
that. It's
All right,
196,940,000 square miles on the planet Earth.
There is. You're right.
57,255,000 square miles of land. Have you ever taken a trip from like one state to the other and say, "Damn, we got mad natural resources, and why is it the fuck that everybody's fucked up?" Have you ever just taken one trip from like one state to another and say, "What the fuck's going on? Something ain't right here, man."
Well, it's because
You know why?
No.
No. You know why? You know why we do this? Is because we rely on government to think for us. If we lived in a real country where, you know what I'm saying, we have more rights, you know what I'm saying, like the Republicans say, less government, and I could just chop some of these trees down and build my motherfucking house, we would live a better life. But Republicans vote against themselves.
Yeah, you're right.
That's why we can't live like that. They create more. Hold up. Silly ass regulations that don't make no goddamn sense, man.
Republicans.
But then they allow big corporations to do whatever the fuck they want on the planet.
Chemo.
All
So
right.
you're right. You're right.
Hold on, Septic. Chemo's on the
places-
stage right now. I would like to address Chemo's statement. We can see that this mass increase in the value of housing and therefore the cost of housing, it doesn't exist in places like Japan, where the mass rules around how you have to conform to building a house don't exist. Instead, they have an incredible number of architects who are trained in making sure
There
that
we
the
go.
houses are safe,
There we
but
go.
they don't have the covenants and restrictions in their neighborhoods that were put there in the first place to keep black people out of white neighborhoods.
And that's what it is. And that's what it comes down
That,
to.
those
That's
are,
what the fuck it
those
comes
are
down to.
American
Deregulation,
regulations and why
Exactly
we have
what it comes
them.
down to.
I hate regulations.
But the second thing I want to say to you, it was no problem back in the days because they wanted more slaves over here in America. See, what you have to understand is when you have cheap labor, you're not trying to feed them. You understand what I'm saying? That's the whole purpose of them. You're not trying to feed them and have them live a quality life so you can reap the benefits of their labor. Don't you get it? That's what it is. So bring more of them. Hell yeah, bring more of them. The elite are not going to suffer. All they're going to do is take the middle. They're going to take the middle and put fear in them, saying that these motherfuckers are going to take your jobs. First of all, you got to understand. Let's look at temp agencies. You know what I'm saying?
I want more
Temp agencies.
Senegalese.
Let's look at that. Do you know why they hire illegals? They hire them because they know they depend on that cheap labor. And black people, we are not doing them jobs no more. We're just not doing it.
And Chemo, I would like to point out that, in fact, black people are doing those jobs where white people are taking fewer jobs as a percentage. Black people are taking more jobs as a percentage of their entire population. Black and Hispanic people have a larger percentage of the population working than white people. which
No,
I think is
I'm talking
pretty
about.
good.
There's certain jobs that are that we just not taking, and we're not
I would
settling for them
imagine that
jobs. You know what I'm saying?
well, certainly,
what
certainly.
Trump calls black jobs.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely, Chemo. And
Unless we're given our rights, and that's the thing about it. See, with illegals, you don't have to give them no fucking rights. Motherfucker, get up on that
And-
motherfucking roof. You don't have no water break.
Chemo.
We're not dealing with that.
Right. That's why we should have documentation for the people that are here so that they can have the kind of protections that
Exactly.
everyone needs to have.
Exactly.
So when
Exactly.
Septic says that's useful and good, he's right about that. What he is doing on the other hand is he said that people that are coming here should be, without being documented, should be removed because they don't have respect for the law. But as you just said, Chemo, the
Sure, why
law
not?
is come here without documentation and you can have a job. That is the law. That is how it's enforced
That's
because
not the law.
laws only exist in so much as they are enforced. And so
True.
because that is how the law is enforced, that's actually how the law works. We could stop all undocumented labor
But even
tomorrow.
with that, hold up.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the law.
it's only enforced
Hold on,
that way
hold on,
because we have
hold on, hold on, brother. I want to talk
impotent-
about the law. The
Yeah,
law
Chemo's
is
currently going,
with
so
temp
we'll get back.
agencies. Knowingly, you're not supposed to hire illegal.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You're not
Yes, sir.
supposed to,
Not
but do
supposed
they
to,
do
but
it?
they do anyway.
Of course they do it.
And
but these are the
because
same
there's no one who
Republican
enforces
private
it.
corporations and companies
because
that
there's
you
no one to enforce
support. You
otherwise.
support these people. You support these big
I don't
Okay,
willies,
support
hold
them.
on,
man.
Chemo.
Okay, on my
Over
fault.
here. I
You have
understand
government,
entirely.
you have government
Yeah.
agencies, and you also have private agencies.
Yep. Now
But
we
ain't
can
none of them got
agree.
union rights.
That's
You know what I
right.
mean?
That's right. And there's an example of a limit
They're
to how much
slaves.
immigration should occur. If
They're
it's,
slaves.
if it's busting a union, that is immigration that should not occur. Right. If it's being used to, it's being
Why?
used because it is because that means people are not coming over with the same rights as other individuals. They're not being brought into this unionization. In every turn where there's a problem with immigration, problem is a lack of support for unions or wages or the disabled. It's not
No,
it's
it's
because
exactly
we don't
what you
have
said.
support for people that we
It's
have.
exactly
But
what you
why?
said.
But why?
What
But
it
why
is-
should
what
we?
it
Why,
is
why should we
hold
give
up, what it
union
is
privileges?
Yeah,
these
Chemo's
private
on.
corporations
Oh,
and
no,
these
sorry.
private companies, what they want to do is they don't want to give the worker or the laborer any rights.
Right.
Any rights. So how do you bypass all of that by not giving them any rights? You're not
There
going to
you
get
go.
the black and listen. You're going to get the illegals. Get the illegals to work for you, and they
Yep.
do it all the fucking time.
And and that's
okay,
why,
listen, we need a
Chemo-
new.
That's why, Chemo,
N-word.
don't
We need
you
a new
think-
N-word.
Don't you think we should have zero people that we treat as a subclass and simply document the people that are here so that they can have
Absolutely.
equal rights?
Yes.
Right.
Because
Zero
then-
illegals.
because
Zero
then-
illegals. Yes.
Then yes, absolutely.
By,
Because then
by
it makes-
documenting
it-
everyone that's here. Now,
That's
Septic
right.
has
That's right.
Septic
Because then,
seek-
hold
well,
up, you know
hold
what
on.
tell you why? And then it forces these big companies to do what they have to do correctly.
Yep.
That's correct.
Zero illegals.
It forces them.
Wait,
It
hold on.
forces them.
Septic's being slimy by slipping in what's called an
Zero
equivocation
illegals.
again. He's saying that you should kick out everybody who has done anything illegal in coming here. For example, if they didn't cross
Yes.
through a port of entry but are otherwise 100% legal and allowed to stay here, 100% legal and allowed to be here, fully documented people, Septic is saying should be mass deported. And
If they didn't come
that
to the port
is
of entry,
insanity.
if they didn't come to
What's
port
the
of
whole
entry,
purpose
they're
of
illegal.
asylum seeking?
Yeah, what are you
you
talking
get here
about?
the way you can get here.
Yeah, asylum seekers come in the port of
Legally,
entry,
though.
of course.
What
Yeah,
are you
of course.
talking about?
It
You
is
should do it
literally.
legally.
It is.
Any asylum seeker can come
Yes,
here in the port of
but-
entry. Easy.
Did you know
Listen,
that
man,
if you
listen,
did you know that if you
Why not?
speed across
why
the
not?
bridge, you also came here
my God,
illegally?
we messed up. We're messed up, man.
What?
Yeah, the speed limit across the bridge is 10 miles an hour, but if you go 12, you're entering illegally.
Across what bridge? From where?
The
What are you
bridge
talking
across the Rio Grande River. to get here, to go to the port of entry, to present yourself. If you cross at 12 miles an hour instead of 10, you've entered America illegally. That doesn't mean that you disrespect the law. It doesn't mean that you're not here legally once you get documented. It just means that you violated a minor unrelated
you're still at the port
law.
of entry, though.
A minor unrelated law to whether or not you're properly documented when it comes to asylum seeking.
But you're at a port of entry, right?
Do you follow what I said?
So sad.
Okay, but are you not at the port of entry?
Do you follow what I said?
If you come at a port of entry at 12
I'm going to
miles
say
an
that
hour,
that's a
are you at a port
no,
of entry?
and we really should have ended this conversation when you claimed
are you
that
at a port of entry?
economics is that when you make more stuff, you don't have more stuff. That was an argument you made. I think we've totally lost the plot here.
In your scenario,
cheap labor goes a
in your
long
scenario,
way,
are you at
brother.
a port of entry?
Cheap labor goes a long way. Trust and believe.
So Chemo.
Are you, okay, so you are at a port of entry. Okay, we agree. That's okay. We're at a port of entry,
and you entered
that's
illegally.
great.
And you entered illegally.
Well, if you come in at 12 miles an hour, that's going to be weighed in
That's
your
illegally entering. Therefore, you're illegal by your logic.
And it's going to be, and that's going to be documented. It's going to be weighed in whether or not you have an asylum claim. Okay, but you've made this claim at the port of entry. All right, so there you go.
Okay, so we agree that it's not the violation of law that's the problem. So what you've done when you say that they're disrespecting the law, when you say that they're
you come in at a port of entry.
All right,
port of entry. You come in.
Once again, when you say that they're disrespecting the law, what you're saying is that the entire class of people has an attribute of disrespect for the law. When some people will go faster than the speed limit because their wife is pregnant and they need to get them to the hospital, right? Because someone's sick and they got to move them. You know, when life's in danger, when you have to take care of your family, sometimes you'll break a minor law, not because you disrespect the law, but because it's necessary for your family. And so this attribution of the idea of disrespectful to everyone who is here undocumented, or even more so, people who are here documented and legally but didn't come through a port of entry, which is insanity. But let's go with it. That attribution to that group of people of disrespect for the law doesn't follow, because there's all sorts of ways that people break the law but then contribute to society because they're trying to do something good that overcomes the minor burden of that law. Every law that has a penalty is not the death penalty for crossing. It's not time in jail. Instead, it's you can present yourself for asylum, and those are how the rules of asylum work. So,
breaking the speed limit, all I have to do is say that my wife is in labor and I'm speeding because of this.
This is correct,
and
Septic.
therefore
That's a
I am
great point.
justified.
Yes, this is how law works. All laws are a function of the context. For example, if you run someone over, is that murder? Well, if you intended to run them over, that's murder. If you did not intend to, it could be negligent homicide. But if you were having an epileptic seizure at the time, then you're not liable at all. So context, even for the same outcome, is always the question of law.
Entry at 10 miles an hour.
Okay. So now what we've got is like some minor mocking that you're doing because I'm trying to be calm and talking to you. So I'm done there. Does anyone else want to talk to him before we evict him? Sleek? Oh, okay, we're good. Okay, so you spun out. This is called spinning out, and I really want you to follow. The reason I was talking calmly is because you're clearly galloping away. So let's go ahead.
We should not adjudicate them.
All right.
Oh my God.
So,
Jesus Christ.
You saw he started mocking me the moment that I made the argument that made sense, right? I think he realized.
Yeah, I put personal attacks on the board, clearly, because it was exactly what he was doing. But also, in his argument, he refuses to give anyone any humanity. These people that are already here, they're documented, by saying, no, we should remove all of them and then replace them with other immigrants.
Yeah, go
It-
to
it-
the
it's like-
attribution bias.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would like to look at that and go a little more deeply, right? The attribution error is if they did it, they caused it, right? In the moment I pointed out that there are laws where that isn't the case, for example, if you run a red light and someone dies, it may not either be murder or negligent homicide if the car was a Tesla and it just took over and killed somebody and you couldn't stop it, right? That's not you. That's on Elon Musk, okay? Because context matters always, right? If you're running away from a murderer who's shooting at you and you go past a stoplight and hit somebody, that's not even negligent, right? The jury is very likely to say you were justified in trying to run away, and then no reasonable person would be able to stop at a stop sign when they're being shot at, right? So there's this reasonable person standard that fundamentally is about how people exist in the world and having sympathy for other people. Yeah. And so what happens is if you fail to have sympathy for what other people are going through, you end up engaging in what's called the attribution error. It's often called the fundamental attribution error. And this emphasizes that personal characteristic of the individual or group. And often we see, look, they're not sending their best, or things like this about entire groups of immigrants, casting the entire group in a light. And that's exactly what we heard over and over again. Anyone else see other logical fallacies in that argument? Go ahead, Marco.
I'm thinking of saying that, hey, if we let undocumented people in, then it's necessarily taking away from other immigrants, and it's like, no, we can let both in. Why don't we speed up the process on both ends? It seems that it's like instead of fixing the governmental structure through policy, he demands that we fix the people, and that is not the best way for people to function. I mean, it uprooting people who've lived here maybe 10, 15 years or have kids and have families and people who depend on them. I mean, it's insanity. But, you know.
Can I speak 1 second?
Well, first I want to address the zero-sum thinking argument. I agree entirely. We saw that a lot. And as soon as we started talking about economics, he would jump. He thinks economics means thinking in terms of zero-sum. And when I explained, if people make more stuff, that means we're more wealthy and we can support more people, he said, no, that's not how economics works. Because in his mind, economics is a whomever, the person making the previous argument, we don't care about names. The person making the previous argument would jump away from how economics really works because it was more of a mental talisman, a way of like thinking that couldn't be assailed. In the same way that you might have any other sort of like religious belief in something as this is how it is, you can't change that for someone else. You just have to help them find a different way of thinking. Hopefully by encountering people that think in different ways that they can respect. But it's really hard to do when somebody's like sitting there and you're talking to them. Yes?
Series I'm thinking, and yeah.
So,
All right.
no.
Hey, John, do you want to have a conversation?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
There was a guy over here that wanted to say
All right,
something.
fantastic. Kodo.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So one of his biggest points was that he wanted legal immigrants because they would be more able to follow laws. However, when you use the example of speeding prior to going through a correct port of entry, he was totally willing to disregard the fact that they just broke a law and got into the country, but it was fine with him simply because they were coming through a port of entry, which to me says that he does not care about the fact that if they're legal or willing to follow laws or not. He's just only willing to prove his non-point, if you would call it. And I thought that was kind of like telling of what his true argument was. And he often used like individuals from Senegal because, you know, they'll likely be black, and it was to kind of deflect from the fact of, hey, I'm not, you know, making this a racial thing, but in my mind, it was kind of one of his underlying, you know, principles, honestly. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so we don't need to go to and we should talk about the logic he was employing, right? It's not about who he is or why he's saying it, but rather the logic of the argument itself. When it comes down to policy, we can say, well, this is the policy outcome here or there that you might lead to. And then we can say, well, obviously, this is having an unequal impact. But I think you bring up an important point. He was giving us a false dilemma, right? He was like, either we have legal immigration or we have undocumented immigration. And either we have people who respect the law or we have people who disrespect the law, right? So this black and white thinking and this false dilemma, so either they're law-abiding entirely and they love laws, or they're just lawbreakers, black and white thinking, and a false dilemma. Either you can have these people who are the negative actors, or you can have the good actors. And both of those pivoted around that zero-sum thinking.
Which is which?
It's neither, John. It's actually all of it. There are going to be bad actors for people who are documented and people who are undocumented. There's going to be good actors for people who are documented and undocumented. But overall, people coming here and working are producing more than is being consumed.
So actually, no. The only people benefiting from illegal immigration is corporations, man.
Okay,
it's not a good thing. We already have a housing problem. Our housing is almost the most expensive in the world.
So,
we have a labor problem where these governments want to bring back child labor, which they've successfully done.
Want to bring back child labor. Okay, let's stop for a second on what you just
millions
said.
of illegals to that, man. It lowers wages, lowers benefits,
let's stop for a second. Let's stop for a second. On the one hand, you're arguing there aren't enough people to do work, so much so they're going to roll back child labor. But on the other hand,
it's not that
you're
there's
saying
not
that
enough
we shouldn't have enough people here to do the labor that needs to be done.
It's not that there's not enough people. It's that labor needs to go up because we're not getting a fair share in the market. Wages have not only stagnated. It means if you lived in 19. It means if you can I finish my statement? It means if you lived in the 1960s, then their minimum wage was equivalent to about $14 to $16 an hour. Right, their buying power, right, and some people only have like not even half of that here. So anyway, corporations have successfully cut off all the profit from the working people, from the middle class. The middle class, at best, is stagnating at a very slight decline. The poor have been completely screwed. And then you want to talk about illegal immigrations? These governments don't care.
We're going to go one step at a time and talk about each of your ideas. You think that's fair?
Right. Yeah, okay, sure.
Well done.
So, you gave a lot of arguments. Your first, I believe, was about how corporations are getting the vast majority of the wealth that has grown.
And I think they're stealing. I think they're stealing the value of time and labor from the working people. I think since you can look this up right now on your phones. Since like 1950s, Americans have produced almost 300% more efficiently what we do, and yet we have actually got a pay cut from what our value of our money is. They're stealing the lives of people. Anyway, what I'm saying is, illegal immigrants do not benefit this country. They benefit the rich. They benefit dictator government.
Oh my goodness gracious. You are jumping
How
around
can
from
you
one
do
argument to another
that?
without thinking
Oh my
through what you're
gosh, that's a
saying,
great-
and you're
No, that's
No, I have
putting
everything
fantastic.
connected.
together all sorts of things that
fantastic.
aren't logically
The
connected.
immigrants are making the rich richer.
You do not think that having
So,
millions
no,
and
no,
millions,
no, 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 I do
millions of
not
illegal
think
immigrants doesn't
whatever
negatively affect our
you
country.
just said in this big ball of argument. I don't think that
Hey,
is
Phil,
correct.
sorry.
Instead, I think we should go one idea at a time. So I'm going to start with your first idea, and that is that corporations are extracting more labor from the individual. And this is true. If we looked at George W. Bush's era, 20% of the value of labor was going to corporate profit. Now, and the other 80% of that money was going to pay people to work. Today, 40% of what people produce is going to corporate profit, with 60% going to labor. That's a huge shift. But we haven't felt that shift for the average person because the average person has kept up. The amount that someone with a high school diploma has been able to make has stayed flat in real terms. And the percentage of the population with a college diploma has increased. So there's a much larger upper middle class of people with a college diploma. And those people have the same purchasing power that they did in the 1980s, except that they have a college degree. There's a much larger number of people. That said, there has been way more growth in our capacity to do things and build wealth, but that wealth growth has gone only in part to increasing the percentage of people making college grad income. Mostly it has gone to people with a lot of stock. People who own a lot of company get that stock, right? Now, that was your first argument, and that is what's going on. Your second argument was that people who are here working are only benefiting the corporations, and that one's false. So, when people come over, no matter whether or not they're documented, they are of benefit to society as long as they're working, because by definition, they're producing more stuff than they're consuming. When you produce more than you consume, then you reduce inflation, thus allowing for greater spending. So, once again, Evil, to follow the economic argument so that you can understand the claim that I'm making, when people work, they produce things. Do we agree on this simple fact? When people work and they produce things, are they producing more than they consume?
Saying that more illegal immigrants, more workers here don't benefit American workers.
So, once again,
more competition doesn't benefit Americans.
Once again, the question of so-called competition is what's called zero-sum thinking. It's as if it is so-called competition because when one person takes a job, then that leaves all that extra productivity from the job that they're making for someone else to take on. And so the way this works is when someone makes something and they make more than is being consumed, then that's extra wealth that exists in society. So once again, it's not going simply into the pockets of corporations. Instead, what's going on? All right, go ahead and kick out this guy. All right. So again, when a corporation has someone that's employed, that person spends money increasing demand in whatever area where they've been employed. Furthermore, they've produced more. Oh, I mean, I just have him muted because he won't stop. So, now Evil. The problem that I'm having in this conversation, and the reason that you're muted, is that you won't go one idea at a time, but you'll keep talking and talking. So, I'm happy to go one idea at a time with you. You're more than welcome to go.
Oh, I just unmute. What'd you say? Anyway, I'm going to make my point here, right? So let's say you got a job, all right? Let's say you're a plumber, okay, for example. And you're an average plumber, whatever. And there are like, okay, you know what, $20 an hour, right? But let's say they have 30 other applicants that want that job. Do you think you have any leverage to get that job at that point? The wage you want and the benefits you want? Like, no. When there's a ton of people wanting the same job as you, right? And to have the ability to do the same job as you, your value goes down. If you could just pick up anyone off the street and they can do the job and they're willing to do the job cheaper, like for example, doctor, do you feel comfortable having the job outsourced to other immigrants?
Now I will respond to your statement.
Well, no. I have 20 seconds of floor. Now you can go ahead and take 10 minutes.
That's right, because you need to follow the statements being made so that you can learn. Really important. So you can learn. The fact is that if we had 20-to-1 unemployment to employment, more people would be in this massive job market. It really would be zero sum. But instead, what we have is an incredibly low unemployment rate, particularly in the trades.
Isn't it actually weird? That's weird. That's so true.
If someone else comes to our nation and they're willing to be a plumber, that's actually more places that get a plumber, not fewer places that get a plumber. And therefore, you don't have much in the way of competition. Instead, you have more wealth overall, more plumbing being done. And because a plumber could be on a site, a drywaller can be on a site. Because a drywaller can be on a site, an electrician can be on a site. And so we don't have a zero sum. What we have is a positive sum when these people join because they're adding to the overall wealth.
They are not.
I literally talked about how it works. That was my claim. Go for it. Tell me why an extra plumber enabling another building to be built isn't also enabling all those other people to be employed to build that building.
What I'm saying is that when there is at least a fair market, there is more incentive for corporations to compensate workers because workers have more leverage. Workers today, right now, are living check to check. The average American.
Okay, so the rhetoric of paycheck to paycheck is something that is called a thought-ending meme. There's a lot of little statements that people make that stop them from thinking any more deeply about a situation. And in this case, you've used the rhetoric of paycheck to paycheck to argue that there's a zero sum here, and there simply isn't. Is he kicked? Mirko?
He blocked you. So
Good.
I'm going
to
kick him.
Kicked, yeah.
Bye, Dr. Avon.
Oh, well, okay. And
Yep.
then he called me a bitch. Great.
Oh, man.
Yeah, of course he did.
Okay.
No,
I was also going to say, sorry.
I was going
you
to
can
ask
go
y'all,
first.
you know what I'm saying? Because I was trying to find him on my block list. I didn't block him. He must have blocked me at some point. I was wondering, who this Dr. Evil was, but I couldn't hear him.
Yeah, so
yes, I do. Sorry. I was going to say, they make some, again, why don't they just make unions stronger so people can't work under the table? Like, do these jobs without hurting other people, you know?
Yeah. Simple.
And,
real simple.
And beyond just unions, which definitely would help, right? I mean, Denmark doesn't have a minimum wage and they don't need it because every industry negotiates with a union. And it kind of makes sense, right? If you're making cars, a minimum wage for that is going to be different than if you're serving popcorn. Like, just makes sense.
Absolutely.
So it's a great
but
system.
Still, at the same time, you have rights. You get to negotiate with the company. You know, the company, the CEOs of the company ain't down there with the people. You know what I'm saying? If you flipping burgers, you know what I'm saying, the grill ain't working, they really don't care about that. You know what I'm saying? And you've been complaining about the grill being broke for like 3 or 4 weeks, and next thing you know, you get fired over it. You know what I'm saying? They don't care about that. They just replace you. But unions, you can fight that type of stuff.
That's
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they'll be like, why didn't you sell more fries?
And it breaks your foot. It breaks your foot. You know what I'm saying? The company is liable. You know what I'm saying?
I think I see a particular logical error or mistaken thinking this guy had. And I think he thought he was helpless, right? He thought as a worker, he is helpless. So every other worker is by definition competition with him. So he got to a zero-sum thinking by believing he doesn't have the ability to, for example, form a union. And then when you think that's the case, then you have to defend all sorts of other arguments. You have to make it black and white thinking. And you have to start saying it's either I get the job or they do. Either there's more people and lower prices, or there's not. And honestly, what he was arguing is closer to an economic argument than anything Septic said. Greater supply of a particular labor force should lead to a decrease in the amount that labor force is paid until there's a market clearing equilibrium. However, it turns out that when it comes to human productivity, that supply and demand thinking doesn't work because people make more than they consume. And when, for example, he was talking about a plumber comes in, he starts doing plumbing, he's able to be the guy who makes it so you can make one more house, thus employing another carpenter, another drywaller, another electrician. Like all of these other people can be employed because of the productivity of that extra person. Oh, and by the way, we all end up with one extra house because of that one extra plumber who was the linchpin to getting to that point.
Say what you said. Say what you said again about the consumption of people. Say that again. I like that. Say it again.
So the economic idea, right, is that the more you have supply of a particular kind of labor, the lower that labor gets paid. Usually we say, hey, think about unions to fix that. But here's another fact. If you build something, you can also increase the amount of demand there is by fact of you being able to create something. So if there's one marginal plumber necessary to build a home, and you don't have that person, so you don't build the home, then the electrician and the drywaller and the carpenter, all of them don't get a job either. But if you have that one extra plumber, that actually increases demand for all these other jobs as well. So when it comes to human creativity, the jobs we do, more people is more benefit even with this economic thinking because there's so much more demand.
I agree with you, man.
If you add supply but you increase demand more, you've increased the overall amount that you can get in that labor pool.
Yes, and that's what I was saying. Especially if you don't plan on paying that cheap labor is fair wages. Yes. You know, as a matter of fact, the less you pay them, the harder they will work. Ain't that about a bitch? That's what I'm saying. The less you pay a person, the more you get out of them. They're gonna work harder because they think working hard is gonna get them.
Chemo. Unfortunately for all of us, that doesn't actually work to increase their productivity. It increases how hard they work, but it doesn't increase how much they produce. Because if people working 80 hours a week, they're hammering, boards and nails into a board, they're missing more nails. They have to work slower as they're doing that work.
They're trying to impress the boss.
Well,
they're working harder. They're letting the boss know.
That's right.
I want to go a stage higher.
That's right. And here's another thing we find out. The people trying to impress the boss, and they'll have to if there's a huge amount of competition, which we don't have now, but the people trying to impress the boss, they only do it when the boss is there to see it. Otherwise, they're gold bricking.
Right. No bullshit.
Yeah.
Hold up. I had a couple of supervisors like that. No bull.
So,
mind about that.
What you do is you give people less time that they have to work. They produce more for you. You make people feel like they have to scramble to look like they're working. They work harder. They put more life force into it, but they produce less. This is the area that I study when it comes to human management. In it, we've had this finding for 40 years. We know, like over and over again, industry after industry, getting people to do overtime leads to less productivity.
More mistakes.
And because of mistakes. And
hold up, rewind that. Hold up. Say that again about the overtime.
Getting people to do overtime leads to less productivity. They make mistakes, have burnout, they die early. You end up without those workers that are best. And not only, it's not the extra 20 hours if they're doing 60 instead of 40 that suffers. it's all 60 that suffers. So now you've got worse productivity for 60 hours instead of better productivity for 40. And it turns out better productivity for 32 than 40 as well.
Interesting.
Oh yeah,
So
I
let me
was
ask
gonna
you-
say.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's on you.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I was saying, I was like, oh man, I do so much overtime, but I have great quality. I'm like, oh yeah, but I'm gonna die sooner, way sooner. But that wasn't the point. The point is that it's about thinking smarter instead of working harder. The people who have the ability who are paid more, so feel more comfortable in their job and aren't stressing as much, have the ability to, thinking of a better way to do things instead of just like, I'm just going to keep stacking these bricks the same way I did it before. They have the ability to think, oh, if I stack it this way, maybe it's more efficient, or I can put more on a pallet or something like that, or use a different tool to stack these bricks on, or lift it in a different way, that kind of thing.
I agree with you. That's facts right there. As a matter of fact, I think the most innovative people on a job that I've dealt with in my job, they were the ones who got fired. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, why you fired them? They came with the knowledge is gonna make this company work. You know what I'm saying? Why you fire them? It's crazy. It's like the exact opposite that I've seen in my life. You know what I'm saying? Those people that like you were talking about and you were describing, this is a better way of doing this. I've been here for like 20 something years. The old timers taught me this. This is a shortcut, blah, 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 blah. They will fire those people in a heartbeat, man. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I can make sense of it for you. Small people have power trips. And so they would rather spite their own general benefit to make sure that they don't have anyone that can question them. And so there's a lot of managers afraid someone will be shown to be better than them, so they get rid of anyone that might be competition.
Man, you ain't lying. That's all I gotta say. You ain't lying.
Well,
I've worked many jobs in my life, and I've seen it, over and over and over again. You know what I'm saying? There's a system that the people came up with because the people are down there on the field. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
We work it like this. You know what I'm saying? This is how we work it. And then some idiot off the street comes up in there and says, nah, we're going to do it a different way. And then now everybody's miserable. We're not doing the numbers we were doing before. And the boss is mad at us. And you know what I'm saying? And this dude's getting a raise. Yeah, man. I can't stand that way of thinking, man.
Yep, it's very common. And it's what we have to fight. When I teach people to be entrepreneurs, I teach them that this leadership is not one person in charge. It's whoever is best equipped for that time and moment and the thing that needs to be done. So a good leader enables other people to take leadership when they need. It's a lesson that it's very hard to get across because so many people are thinking in these hierarchical power systems, and I've got to protect myself. These sort of same thinking errors that lead people to radicalization, like zero-sum thinking, they lead them to being bad managers and having worse lives. They make them think if my wife wins, then I lose.
Right.
My God. How could you win more than by letting your wife win?
I swear to God. Yeah, man. Yeah, we living in a crazy world.
Sir.
I was in the Alpha Male Trump room the other night, and they bullied me. You know what I'm saying? They cornered me. I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous, man. You know what I'm saying? they came out. They came from every direction, man, spitting that craziness. I'm like, yo, man, do you love your mother? Do you love your sister? Damn, it's crazy it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah, we live in a crazy world.
Yep. So the goal here, Chemo, I know you haven't been here in a bit. I want to go over what we do here, and then we'll probably call it. What we're trying to do is, instead of dunking on people and telling them they're wrong, going over the common errors in thinking that people have. And these errors in thinking are used by people in power to radicalize their followers and get them to keep them in power and or act in some radical manner. So this de-radicalization occurs if we teach them about these problems, like confirmation bias, just thinking something's true because you believe it. Therefore, whatever evidence that you can find to support what you believe must be true. Attribution error, if they did it, they caused it. We're talking about immigration, thinking that, oh, all immigrants must have the attribute, if they're undocumented, of not respecting the law, right? But for you and me, well, whenever I think about myself, well, there's all sorts of complex causes we're responding to. Substitution error, accepting an answer to a different question. You really want an answer to A, so you accept an answer to B because, A and B are close, right? False equivalence, when you say two things are the same, but they aren't. For example, when we had this argument that undocumented immigrants are the same in terms of whatever we're talking about as people who are documented but didn't come through a port of entry, right? As a false equivalence. Mott and Bailey, this is where you make a big, undefensible argument, and then when you're questioned on it, you retreat to something that everyone can agree with. Right. And when we're talking about immigration, you would start making these like black and white arguments, these zero-sum thinking arguments. Say, well, aren't you making a zero-sum argument? It's like, no, actually, we don't have zero-sum resources. We've shown that we're willing to spend, right? And then we lead into the zero-sum thinking. If they win, I lose. Therefore, if I make them lose, I win. And that mindset is so common sense and exactly the opposite of how human systems work. When you help someone else out, you end up winning too.
Like
almost all the time.
Facts.
Yep. Black and white, it's either all or nothing, right? It's either all good or all bad. And we do that because it makes life easy to deal with, but it's not the reality. Gish galloping, I think we're all familiar with that in these rooms, just setting lots of arguments, argument, so no one argument can be spoken of. That's what that last guy I was talking to, I had to mute him because it was making like 4 arguments at once inside of all of that.
Who came up with the word? Hold on, who came up with the titles like Gish Gallop?
So throughout the study of rhetoric and cognitive errors, people have been coming up with these names. And
I like this.
Yep.
I'll bring something new to the hoodie. You Gish Galloping, son. What you talking about?
There you go. That's exactly it, Chemo. And the idea, Chemo, is that the folks that volunteer here to learn about these things can practice with the people that come in the room, and then they can help be teachers for people to de-radicalize them in their own communities. Because
I like this shit, man.
You can't stop someone from being a radical, but you can teach them the errors that are tricking them, and then they'll stop themselves when they start seeing it happen. Argument from incredulity. Sorry. I got that one from that last guy. Well, but go ahead, Mirka.
Oh, I was going to say that we should tell Andy next time he comes in that it's based on a debate tactic from Diane Gish, who was a literally was a creationist.
Yes.
So Andy would love that to know that.
Gish Gallop was started in the creationist. So
it came from her
debates.
name. It came from her name, Gish Gallop.
Yes.
Gish Galloping mom.
Because you're galloping around from argument to argument. Argument from incredulity, right? Like someone was arguing about economics, and I said, well, if you make more stuff, there's more stuff for people to have. And he said, that's not how that works. Well, first off, it's so obvious that I don't even know why I had to say it, except that it was the counter to whatever he was saying. And second, his argument was from incredulity. I just don't believe you, right? Sunk costs, when you've invested so much that you don't want to quit. Now, sometimes we can see that when people start making their argument and they feel like they've sunk enough of themselves into this argument, they feel like they have to defend it. Other times, people have gone on for years in, say, a bad relationship. And they're like, well, it's been so many years, I have to keep on with that relationship. Not to say that years of relationship don't have meaning and you shouldn't, I don't know, seek counseling. But these are the sorts of things that we see all the time. Personal attacks. And this is important because I think all of us have this tendency to try and see underneath why someone's making an argument. But when we do that, we stop being rational and we start thinking either you're part of my team or you're against my team. And when that happens, we get all these other errors cropping up because we got to use whatever tactic we can to protect our team.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what? Why I don't know about that part is because think about it like this, man.
Yeah.
That's like it leans towards like favoring the ignorant person. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like the ignorant person gets the favor.
And
sometimes the whole idea of communicating different ideas is to get that ignorance out of them. So it's like, I don't know about that one.
So Chemo, I think that's a really important point. Saying that a personal attack about someone's ignorance is also like saying that you shouldn't have an appeal to authority. Well, you shouldn't appeal to authority as your reason unless there's a reason that authority should be an authority on that subject, right? And you shouldn't say that somebody is simply ignorant about how something works unless it's not a personal attack. It's a fact about how they just don't know how something works. So I totally understand how not speaking to someone about them personally can be seen as a mistake because you're just like, oh, I can't tell you you're ignorant, right? But there's a distinction here between facts that matter to the case at hand and just calling somebody like maidenless because you want to undermine their credibility and you think that's what's causing them to make their argument. Yeah, Marco.
I hear you, brother.
Yeah, I think there is a way to insinuate somebody is not qualified enough to talk on the topic if they're completely way off base without validating their opinion.
That's right.
Like you don't want to validate somebody who's like, oh, gravity doesn't exist or something like that. And it's like, clearly they don't know a lot of the science behind it.
Right.
But, Cool.
Also, just as an aside, Einstein said gravity doesn't exist. Okay. False dilemma.
Oh,
no! Yeah. You won't believe me, but gravity doesn't exist. Instead, time-space is exploding, and we're all just falling towards the ground. Anyway, false dilemma, right? Either this or that, which, for example, in the immigration conversation we had, it's either people here who have been documented or not. And in fact, you can have people who are documented that want to come in and add them and document the people who are already here who are undocumented. And finally, a learned helplessness. And I spoke to this earlier, and I think you'll see it all over the place when you talk to people when they're like, no, you can't do that. They'll talk about not what can be done, but how things are now, right? They'll say, well, that's just not how it works. And they're appealing to their own learned helplessness. They feel like, well, I have to tell you how it works instead of addressing how we could make a change because I don't see any way that we can change things. So they've learned to believe that they can't make a difference. But humans do make a difference. And you're a human.
Yep.
So maybe you're the human that's going to make a difference. You don't know.
Right,
Don't count yourself out. All right, let's go to Jazz.
I'm sorry, it was just I wasn't going to talk.
Oh, okay. All right, there we go. So that's what we're up to. We have a group that is the collective that's doing this, volunteers over at our Discord, and we're going to meet on Sunday to continue talking about at 8 p.m. Pacific the direction that we're going and what we want to do.
Where's the website, man? Where's the website, man?
Yeah, teachprogress.org.
Yep.
Or
right here.
Teachprogress.org.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got you.
It's a much sleeker design. I like the.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I can't swear here, but I mess around with y'all. You know what I'm saying? I like y'all be doing some positive things up in here, man. For real.
I hope so.
I
appreciate
hope
we can do that.
I ain't gonna front, man.
That's fair.
Word up. You got my love.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to end the stream.